Chapter 633. Throwing oneself into the sea of light can grant one eternal life, but one can never leave the sea of light for the rest of one's life. Once one leaves the sea of light, one will immediately turn into ashes. I don't like this kind of longevity. Lin Feng looked at the eyeless fish in front of him and listened to his explanation. He sighed softly. Life or freedom, which was more important? It was the same choice that had been talked about so many times. But when people really faced this problem, how many people could make a decisive choice and never regret it? Lin Feng asked, "Do you have a name?" The eyeless fish was silent for a moment, then nodded his big head down. "It calls me pupilless." This, it, was referring to the golden ball of light in the sea of light below. Lin Feng and Shi Zhongtian couldn't help but understand. Although the golden ball of light was still an embryo of a magic treasure of creation, it had already developed its own spiritual consciousness. However, this kind of spiritual consciousness was vague and grand, and it wouldn't appear often. It was like the self-consciousness of a world. Although it was not mature yet, it already contained the aura of creation and could trigger the void thunder tribulation. It was its existence that allowed the black fish named Pupilless to pass the thunder tribulation and form a demon infant. That was why Pupilless continued to cultivate and finally formed an immortal demon soul. The spiritual consciousness of a magic treasure of creation like this would not appear easily. For example, if Lin Feng and Shi Zhongtian caught a small number of black fish or went deep into the pool in the heaven mystic realm, the golden ball of light wouldn't pay any attention to them. But if Lin Feng and the others completely cut off the process of the black fish entering the sea of light, interfere with the golden ball of light's self-maturation, or completely destroy the heaven mystic realm, the golden ball of light would definitely react. Only such a major event would the golden ball of light react. Pupilless was more special. He was the first golden-eyed black fish to doubt, reject, and finally resist his own instinct and fate. He spontaneously broke away from the orbit of fate and left the special balance of spiritual qi and the ecosystem that had been formed in the heaven mystic realm for a long time to nurture the golden ball of light. This behavior attracted the attention of the golden ball of light. However, the golden ball of light was not angry at this child for going against its will. On the contrary, it helped Wu Tong because he wanted to walk his own path. Perhaps it was just out of interest, or perhaps it was out of generosity. To it, it was a simple matter, but it had helped Pupilless a lot. In the cloud forest world, more than 10 cloud forest trees contained vast amounts of essence energy. Their foundations were so robust that they were not inferior to essence spirit powerhouses. But because there was no void thunder tribulation in the cloud forest world, these 10 over cloud forest trees had grown for countless years but were unable to form a demon nascent soul all along. Pupilless' eyes made a look gesture towards the sea of light down below. At this moment, he had already formed the undying demon soul. Although he didn't have eyes, his soul consciousness could naturally determine the direction. Looking at the golden ball of light, Pupilless had mixed feelings. After attaining the indestructible demon soul, as long as he wanted to, he could reconstruct his eyes at any time, but he did not do so in the end. Lin Feng asked, "Is there anyone else like you among your kind?" "Yes, in my memory, after such a long time had passed, there would always be someone like me every once in a while, who would develop a higher level of intelligence." Pupilless answered, "Most of them would still dive down to the sea of light after reaching adulthood. Only a few were like me." Speaking up to this point, Pupilless's mood was a little gloomy. But in the end, these companions all died. Their lifespans came to an end, and in the end, they died and disappeared. I taught them everything I knew, but until now, I'm still the only one. Lin Feng and Shi Zhongtian looked as usual. Wasn't it the same for the human world? Although this was a world where cultivators lived, those who could cultivate successfully, even if they were only qi refinement stage cultivators, were still very few compared to the population of the entire world. Most people in the world couldn't cultivate qi refinement. They lived a plain and busy life, and after a few decades, they died of old age and turned into a cup of soil. It was the same for qi refinement stage cultivators and foundation establishment stage cultivators. Their lifespans were no more than 100 years. Golden elixir cultivators could live for 1,000 years. Compared to mortals, they were undoubtedly immortal. But in the grand timeline of the entire world, it was just a small fragment. Yuanying cultivators had a lifespan of 3,600 years, but in the long river of time, they couldn't do much. Those golden-eyed black carps that chose to dive into the Sea of Light changed their life forms and became a part of the Sea of Light. As long as they left the Sea of Light, they would turn into ashes. But if they didn't leave the Sea of Light, they could actually move freely within the range of the Sea of Light. Retaining self-awareness and retaining their previous memories was actually no different from being alive. Under the protection of the golden ball of light, they could even live for a long time. If the golden ball of light became a treasure of creation and could truly withstand the world's extinction, then under its protection, these golden carps could even live until the next era. It was really close to immortality. They didn't need to cultivate hard, undergo tribulations, or increase their realm. Silently staying in the Sea of Light was enough. Compared to them, Pupilless seemed to be very stupid. She gave up such an easy and happy eternal life just to maintain her most complete self without any restrictions. Without the protection of the Sea of Light, there are many dangers and many restrictions. How can it be called freedom? Pupilless murmured, but I feel that this is my own choice, not the fate of my race. This is the freedom I yearn for. Some companions like me, after trying hard, ultimately chose to give up. But without eyes and their own strength, they couldn't merge into the Sea of Light. As soon as they got close, they would be burned by the Sea of Light and even vaporized. So some of my companions started to curse me. In the midst of cursing, they gradually grew old and died. Pupilless was a little confused. In the face of these companions, I had no choice but to swallow them into my belly before they died and use my own strength to nourish them. This could slow down their aging, but as time passed, everyone gradually died of old age. In the past, I went to tell everyone that there is another path in our lives, but now I don't dare to go, because I can't guarantee that they will all be like me. In that case, perhaps throwing oneself into the Sea of Light and obtaining immortality is also a good choice. Lin Feng opened his palm, revealing a small all-heavens world made of purple qi. Inside the small world, Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, Yang Qing, and Tunten were all silent. During the process of diving, under the control of Lin Feng's divine sense, they could see everything that was happening outside. The communication with Pupilless' divine sense was also transferred by Lin Feng to everyone, so that they could all understand the content. Follow the destiny of the race, give up the possibility of one's own growth, and live forever in an environment of limited freedom? Or break free from the shackles of fate, fight for oneself in the wind and waves, fight for that 1-in-a-million chance to obtain great power, rely on one's own strength to obtain immortality, and defeat death? In a sense, Pupilless was fighting against his own instinct, which was the most basic and strongest instinct of almost all sentient beings. The instinct to survive. Zhu Yi and the others fell into deep thought. Because of the existence of the golden ball of light, the fate of the golden-eyed black fish race, and the struggle with Pupilless and a few others were not the same as the cultivation of the human race. If the human race did not cultivate, their lifespan would be limited, and they would undoubtedly die when the time came. Painstakingly cultivating and fighting against the heavens was also the embodiment of the instinct to survive. But the golden-eyed black fish race did not need to painstakingly cultivate, and they could also obtain immortality with limited conditions. Pupilless broke free from this fate, but instead sent himself to a cliff full of thorns, where he could fall at any time and be crushed to pieces. The great terror between life and death was never a joke. The reason I present these things to you is not to ask you to overcome the instinct to survive like Pupilless and pursue the freedom in your hearts. Lin Feng's voice sounded in everyone's ears, but I want you to be able to understand more of the mysteries within, to distinguish your true heart, and to strengthen your Tao heart. Life, freedom, and the principles of heaven and earth all exist in one heart. They may be opposed, but they may also be unified. The subtleties within are what we cultivators need to grasp. Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and Yang Qing all took a deep breath and bowed to Lin Feng. Your disciples have learned. Although Xiao Yan and the others were not present, Lin Feng would make up for this lesson in the future. Pupil-S, I am Lin Feng, the master of the Xianmen sect. I am not from this medium-class world, but from the divine land of the boundless world. My disciple, Xianmen Tianzong, is the first person to set foot in this medium-class world. In the future, I and my disciples will also occupy this world for cultivation. Lin Feng looked at the giant black fish without eyes in front of him. I will not interfere with the survival of you and your people, but in the future, I will take it. As he said this, Lin Feng pointed to the golden ball below and continued, taking this thing will not affect the natural reproduction of your race. Life, death, and old age are normal in the world. What are your plans next? Pupil-S transmitted her thoughts, I will not interfere with what you want to do. It does not belong to me, and this world does not belong to me. Plans? I have no plans. I don't know where I should go. The freedom I seek is not the freedom of the body, so I have been staying in the pool all these years. Pupil-S said, I may walk around and see the world outside the pool. When Lin Feng and Shi Zhongtian heard Pupil-S's somewhat childish words, they couldn't help but feel a little speechless. Although he was firm and pure, he was also quite naive. This was related to his experience growing up. In the pool, there were only him and the other golden-eyed black fish. As he continued to grow, apart from the big guy below, there was nothing that could threaten him at all. There was not even an existence that showed hostility towards him. Pupil-S's experience to be able to form an indestructible demon soul and reach the realm of being one with the heavens and the earth was truly an anomaly. It was similar to the golden ball of light in the Shantian realm, which was almost impossible to replicate. It was no wonder that no other golden-eyed black fish could truly achieve anything besides him. If he left the pool in his current state and left the Shantian realm, it would be fine if he didn't run into a primordial spirit realm expert. Otherwise, if he ran into someone with evil intentions, he would be directly killed and turned into a great tonic. In fact, if a nascent soul expert like Marquis Jinghuan who had made proper preparations and a thorough plan, it wasn't impossible for him to create a miracle of slaying a great sage. This Pupil-S great saint could be called the most unreliable great saint of the demon race in the history of the great heaven primordial world. Chapter 634. Lin Feng looked at Pupil-S in front of him, thought for a moment, and said, although this golden light ball stimulated the void thunder tribulation to help you form your nascent soul, it can also help you in other aspects. But your cultivation depends more on yourself, right? Pupil-S nodded his big head. Yes, I figure it out by myself. But staying beside it, I can more or less feel some principles, and it feels very useful. This was natural. Although the golden light ball below was not mature, it already contained the Tao of heaven and earth and the true meaning of creation. Lin Feng looked at the many golden-eyed black fish swimming around him, saying, You've tried to enlighten and teach your own kind, but you've always failed. This is because you haven't been able to summarize and refine your own understanding of Tao techniques, it's not systematic. Your juniors of the same race are unable to learn systematically, resulting in twice the effort for half the result. Unless there is a junior who is as good as you and has great luck, it will be difficult for you to cultivate a successful successor. Pupil-S pondered for a moment and said, Makes sense. You are right. I understand a lot of principles, but when I explain them to my companions, I can't explain them clearly and make them understand. Lin Feng smiled slightly. If you want, you can join me in Xianmen Tianzong, figure out the Tao, and then teach it to your kind. I will also make it convenient for you. If there is anything you don't understand in the process of cultivation, I can guide you. Pupil-S had no eyes, but he still made a looking gesture, looking at Lin Feng, and asked curiously, Are you willing to help me? He hesitated for a moment and carefully asked a question. Lin Feng listened and instantly smiled. No wonder this Pupil-S was able to make it this far without anyone's guidance. Just looking at the questions he asked, he could tell that they were very reliable. Pupil-S cultivated himself into a demon, so he had his own demon Tao to cultivate. His questions to Lin Feng were beyond this demon Tao, and pointed directly to the origin of the Tao of heaven and earth. It was not that he wanted to hide it, but whether it was the Tao of the human clan or the demon clan, the ultimate source was the Tao of heaven and earth. His questions were always on point. Pupil-less questions were not difficult for Lin Feng. He answered casually, and Pupil-less suddenly felt enlightened. The problems that had been troubling him in the past were instantly solved. Even Shi Zhongtian, who was listening to Lin Feng's answers, felt that he had benefited a lot. He thought, how really has a great master. Pupil-less had always explored and understood the problem of cultivation by himself. He had no one to guide him, and he didn't even have anyone to talk to. He also had an obsession towards cultivation, immediately pestering Lin Feng and raising all of the questions he had in the past. After a while, Pupil-less eyes, and Feng and Shi Zhongtian, which made them feel very funny. His huge body swam back and forth in the pitch-black water, his demonic power fluctuated continuously, his divine sense and thoughts scattered everywhere, but he was continuously digesting Lin Feng's guidance. He was lost in thought for a moment, even forgetting Lin Feng and Shi Zhongtian at the side, which made the two of them quite amused. Lin Feng lightly said, "Do you want to come out of the water and take a walk, or continue to stay here?" Pupil-less finally came back to his senses. He stopped and nodded, "I'm willing to go with you." "Then let's go." Lin Feng lowered his head and looked at the golden ocean under his feet. Then, he went up first. Shi Zhongtian and Pupil-less followed him. Soon, 2 people and 1 demon rushed out of the water. In the outside world, there were many more points of reference, and Pupil-less' body was even larger. There was a large rift valley above the pool, but it was too small compared to Pupil-less' body. He directly crushed a large piece of earth and rocks. Pupil-less was stunned. He also knew the way of transformation, but he had never been out of the pool in his life, so he was caught off guard. He quickly shrunk his body and turned into a big fish that was only 2 or 3 meters long. With his body shrunk a little, he looked more like a big black carp. He didn't have golden light in his eyes like other golden-eyed black fish. Pupil-less swayed his tail and floated in the air. He looked like he was still swimming in the water. Lin Feng waved his hand, and Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and the others reappeared. They looked at Pupil-less with a complicated look. Pupil-less himself didn't notice it. He was also carefully looking at them with his eyes that couldn't see. Suddenly, his body swayed, and black light flickered. His appearance changed, and he transformed into a black-robed young man. He looked very ordinary, except for the whites of his eyes, which made him look somewhat terrifying. Zhu Yi and the others came to their senses and saluted Pupil-less, "Hello, senior." Pupil-less imitated them and also saluted them, but his movement was a little sluggish and clumsy. "Hello." "Hello." Lin Feng said, "From today on, Pupil-less is the same as Jiayu and the others. You are all people of Xianmen Tianzong." The others nodded. Zhu Yi looked at the deep pool below and asked, "Master, what should we do next? Do we protect the creation magic treasure embryo?" Lin Feng shook his head and smiled. "Get ready. We will officially open up the Xiantian realm." Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, Yang Qing, and even Shi Zhongtian and Tunten were a little surprised. "Master, that thing." Shi Tianhao pointed at his feet. Lin Feng smiled. "Don't worry. I have my own arrangements. We won't delay either of them." The disciples were immediately curious. But since Lin Feng had made a decision, they naturally followed it. After talking about business, Shi Tianhao stole a glance at Pupil-less and secretly transmitted his voice to Lin Feng, "Master, those dark fish down there, you still say you've grown up?" Lin Feng looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. Shi Tianhao chuckled and Tunten, who was at the side, was already drooling. If it wasn't for Wu Tong being at the side, it probably would have immediately dived into the water. Lin Feng shook his head. "Don't touch the things in the pool. I have my own arrangements." Shi Tianhao and Tunten were akin to eggplants that had been hit by frost. Zhu Yi and Yang Qing immediately knew what was going on and helplessly shook their heads. Pupil S was still in a daze. He looked here and looked there, not knowing what was going on. What do you plan to do next, Daoist Shi? Lin Feng turned to look at Shi Zhongtian. Shi Zhongtian pondered for a moment and answered, Sect leader Lin, I will have to trouble you to take care of Hao. I want to enter the void battlefield again. Hao's parents are still trapped in there. I heard from Hao just now that you specifically sent a nascent divinity clone into the void battlefield. I'll thank you in advance. You've put in a lot of effort for Hao's sake. The void battlefield is too big and there are people from the underworld hall coveting it. I want to enter and try to find Violet Grave and the others as soon as possible. Lin Feng nodded. Daoist Shi, I can understand your deep affection for your father. I won't interfere with your actions. If there's anything you need, feel free to tell me. Shi Zhongtian shook his head. How would I dare trouble sect leader Lin? It's just that I've been injured for a long time and need to heal first. He paused for a moment and glanced at Shi Tianhao. He then said to Lin Feng, also, I want to pass on everything I know to Hao. I hope sect leader Lin can understand. Generally speaking, the atmosphere of the human cultivation world in the vast land of the Divine Prefecture was inclusive, but there were also a few sects that did not allow their disciples to bring their skills to seek a master, and some sects did not allow their disciples to learn other sects' Taoist magic and supernatural powers privately. Shi Zhongtian didn't know about Lin Feng's rules, so he had to ask in advance. Lin Feng smiled. Do as you wish, I don't mind. Shi Zhongtian immediately said, if that's the case, I'll have to trouble you for a few more days. I hope you don't mind. You're welcome. Lin Feng turned to Wu Tong with a smile. You're quite the glutton. The cauldron you swallowed earlier is what my disciple is looking for. Wu Tong scratched his head and opened his mouth. A small bronze cauldron flew out and landed in front of Lin Feng and the others. It was the last void cauldron. Lin Feng opened his palm and took the cauldron into his hand. Good, the void mountain and river cauldron and the set of 9 mother and son cauldrons are all complete now. However, there are still some things to pay attention to if I want to cultivate the frigid ice fruit into the karmic firewood. Just having the blessed spirit soil won't be enough. When Xia Huang died and Ding of Shenzhou went missing, there were many things that needed to be planned carefully. Lin Feng thought, let's build the heaven mystic realm first. I hope this place can become a foundation pillar of the sect. Doing this kind of practical thing naturally needed to make the best use of people, and Dao Jiqiang was a very suitable candidate. Speaking of which, the bitter external chief steward had just sorted out the clues of Cloud Mirror City and Cloud Peak. At this moment, the burden was quite heavy. Now, Lin Feng was going to put the burden on him again and increase the weight. As the old saying goes, the capable do more work. Fortunately, Dao Jiqiang was more or less prepared for this. He knew that Xianmen Tianzong was about to enter a stage of rapid development and all kinds of things would emerge one after another. Therefore, he usually picked reliable and capable talents and promoted them to be his helpers. Together with Zhu Yi, Wang Lin, and other personal disciples, Dao Jiqiang was among the first batch of people who knew about the existence of the heaven mystic realm. As soon as he received the news, he immediately realized the problems he was about to face. He immediately began to hand over his work in Cloud Mirror City to people he trusted and selected competent people. He was very tight-lipped. Although he was selecting people, he did not leak any information. It was not until Lin Feng officially informed him to go to the heaven mystic realm that he took his capable subordinates and followed Wang Lin to this undeveloped medium-class world. The few of them naturally could not start the construction immediately. They had to survey and plan first, and then mobilize a large number of people to officially start the construction. In addition to various mineral and medicinal resources, Dao Jiqiang and the others also had to explore the basic topography and determine the area suitable for immigrants to live in. Lin Feng had already expressed his idea. He wanted to migrate to the heaven mystic realm and increase the population, so as to expand the talent selection of his own sect and make it easier to grasp the details of these talents. Since they were going to migrate, it naturally had to be livable. It had to be suitable for both cultivators and ordinary people. Xianmen Tianzong began its own construction in full swing, but there was no impenetrable wall in the world. There was no need for Xianmen Tianzong to leak the secret. For primordial spirit realm cultivators, such a big event as the opening of the domain barrier passage might not be discovered from a distance, but if they happened to pass by, they would immediately notice it. Zen Master Dade sat in the valley of the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain, guarding the domain passage connecting the heaven mystic realm and the divine land. One morning, a drop of dust suddenly fell on his enlightened Zen heart. The old monk frowned slightly and looked up into the distance. His eyes turned into bright Buddha's light. Wherever it shone, the void rippled like water and a figure appeared. Chapter 635. Zen Master Dade cultivated the complete version of the Infinite Light Buddha Sutra. The Amitabha Sutra, the Great Light Mantra, and the 3000 Illumination Dharma were all complete. Although he was kind and did not like to fight, his Buddhist cultivation was profound. His Zen heart was clear, and his perceptive ability was outstanding. What's more, his opponent didn't bother to hide his tracks. The Buddhist light from Zen Master Dade shone on the distant sky. The void rippled like water, revealing the figure of a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man had a square face, and his aura was vast and steady. He stood in the sky, sword chi rushing into the sky. He was like a straight golden pillar that stood on the ground, supporting the sky above his head. He seemed to be independent of the world, a body of his own, but also faintly resonated with the great Tao of heaven and earth. Zen Master Dade sat on the ground without moving. He put his palms together. So it's Sword Venerable Shaoyang. It's been a long time. The middle-aged man in the sky was the sword master of the Shaoyang sword lineage, one of the 6 lineages of Shu Mountain, Sword Venerable Shaoyang. Sword Venerable Shaoyang had already reached the primordial spirit reversion realm thousands of years ago. However, facing Zen Master Dade, who had reached the primordial spirit incarnation realm, he did not dare to approach. He only stood far away. Zen Master Dade rubbed the decree that Lin Feng had given him, smiling as he shook his head. Sword Venerable Shaoyang was too cautious. He was much harder to deal with than the others. Sword Venerable Shaoyang said calmly, "It has indeed been a long time, Dade." His gaze swept across the valley where Zen Master Dade was. The border of this realm passageway is very stable. It doesn't seem to lead to infinite wasteland or the void battlefield. Instead, it seems to lead to a dimensional realm. Among the known dimensional realms, I've never heard of a new realm passageway that connects to the divine land. Then, does this passageway behind you lead to a brand new dimensional realm? Zen Master Dade sighed and stood up. With one step, he arrived at where Sword Venerable Shaoyang had been standing. Unexpectedly, Sword Venerable Nusun retreated instead of advancing. Facing Zen Master Dade, whose cultivation was lower than his, he rapidly retreated. His entire body transformed into a streak of sword light, already disappearing from Zen Master Dade's vision without a trace. Zen Master Dade shook his head. Revered swordsman Shaoyang was too cautious and too decisive. If he had even the slightest thought of fighting back, he might have been stopped by Lin Feng's decree. Only by retreating without hesitation, without the slightest bit of hope, and wholeheartedly escaping, would he have a chance to escape. In fact, that was exactly what Sword Venerable Shaoyang had done. Even though the sword Dao he cultivated was neutral and peaceful, as a sword cultivator, Sword Venerable Young Sun would rather break than bend. However, today's situation was special. Sword Venerable Young Sun decisively chose the most advantageous and correct choice. Because to him, as long as he could escape, it would be equivalent to victory. Zen Master Dade sighed and passed the news to Lin Feng. After learning of the situation, Lin Feng did not feel vexed. Instead, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "I already know of the matter. Zen Master, there is no need to take it to heart. Continue to guard the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain and prevent the invasions of thieves. Zen Master Dade was a little surprised. The Shushan Sword sect had received the news. Even if they did not invade, spreading the news would inevitably bring trouble to Xianmen Tianzong. Given Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong's current strength, unless Taishu Temple launched an all-out attack, or the other major forces joined forces, Xianmen Tianzong could withstand it. But if Xiantian realm became the main battlefield, with a small disturbance every 3 days and a big fight every 5 days, then Xianmen Tianzong's construction of this medium-class world would have to be put on hold. The overall construction plan of the sect would also be disrupted, and the development would be delayed. Although he was a guest, Xianmen Tianzong respected Zen Master Dade very much and did not hide many things from him. Therefore, Zen Master Dade knew that after the Battle of West Hill City, no matter the objective conditions or Lin Feng's own subjective will, Xianmen Tianzong would enter a stage of rapid development. In this case, constantly entangling with other forces would undoubtedly divert their own energy. But seeing that Lin Feng seemed to have a well-thought-out plan, Zen Master Dade still nodded. He just reminded, Master, you need to beware of the change of the Qin dynasty's mind. This place is located at the edge of the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. Not only is it close to Shushan, but it is also close to the sphere of influence of the Qin dynasty. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Zen Master Dade's words showed that he was serious about Xianmen Tianzong. Master, thank you. Zen Master Dade's reminder was also within the scope of Lin Feng's consideration. On Yujing Mountain, Lin Feng was thinking carefully. From his point of view, he had always opposed the behavior of eating alone. At least when he ate the meat, he should leave some soup for others. It was not that he was so generous, but it was convenient for him to have more opportunities to eat meat in the future. He definitely wanted to make Xiantian realm his sect's private land, and he would not allow others to covet it. The magic treasure embryo of creation was also in his pocket. If anyone dared to touch it, he would cut off his hand. But this was mainly limited to territorial sovereignty, and no one was allowed to touch it. All kinds of resources produced in Xiantian realm could be shared with other forces. Of course, it would not be shared for free, but it was a good thing for both parties to establish a stable and equal communication channel. Especially after the exploration of Shi Tianhao and others, there were quite some good products in Xiantian realm, which were urgently needed by some sects in the Divine Land. Through this communication channel, Lin Feng could also make it convenient for his own sect to obtain various kinds of precious resources from other forces. As for the trouble that might be caused, Lin Feng smiled. Different situations called for different actions, and he would just deal with it. In this world, people could not give up eating for fear of choking. It was worth doing it if the benefits outweighed the risks. When Shaoyang's swordmaster returned to Mount Shu, it was naturally impossible for Mount Shu to keep the secret for Lin Feng. Soon, the news that Xianmen Tianzong had opened up a new medium-class world spread throughout the Great Heaven world. For a time, the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain became turbulent, and heroes gathered. Intimidated by the strength of Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong, most people were still in the stage of observing secretly and did not act rashly. Lin Feng did not know whether to laugh or cry. The first to come to him were some local small and medium-sized cultivation forces in the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. Of course, they did not overestimate themselves and rushed to take a share of the profits. Instead, they were so polite that they were almost humble, hoping to be closer to Xianmen Tianzong, so that their cultivators would have the opportunity to enter Xiantian realm to gain experience. Of course, there were also many sects that expressed their hope to buy the resources produced in Xiantian realm. Some sects even sought to become Xianmen Tianzong's agents in the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. Lin Feng naturally left these matters to his disciples, and he did not pay much attention to them. The only thing that made him slightly interested was that Beyond Heaven Mountain actually came to him. This sect had always been attached to Mount Shu Sword sect. After Xianmen Tianzong unified the Kunlun Mountain area, many people thought that Beyond Heaven Mountain was a nail that Mount Shu had inserted into Kunlun Mountain. However, after the Battle of West Hill City, there were rumors that Beyond Heaven Mountain and Mount Shu were gradually drifting apart. Although they did not show any goodwill to Xianmen Tianzong, the upper echelons of Beyond Heaven Mountain seemed to have other ideas, and their attitude toward Mount Shu sword sect was not as warm as before. Strictly speaking, in terms of geographical distance, Beyond Heaven Mountain was not far from the entrance of Xiantian realm. The sudden appearance of Shaoyang swordsman near the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain might actually be because he was visiting Beyond Heaven Mountain and noticed the unusual movements here, so he came to investigate on the way. And this time, Beyond Heaven Mountain took the initiative to visit. In the eyes of the outside world, it confirmed their intention to change sections. This kind of fence-sitter behavior might be a bit disdainful in the eyes of large sects, but it was extremely common in small and medium-sized sections. In order to survive in the cracks between large powers, it was necessary to be tactful. When Beyond Heaven Mountain was attached to Mount Shu in the past, although it was regarded as a nail that had been inserted into Kunlun Mountain, Beyond Heaven Mountain itself had always behaved itself, and did not cause any trouble for Xianmen Tianzong. Now that the conflict between Xianmen Tianzong and Mount Shu sword sect was becoming more and more antagonistic, the power that was originally attached to Beyond Heaven Mountain was undoubtedly a good signal, and it would also serve as an example for other powers that were attached to Mount Shu. Therefore, when Zhu Yi received the guests from Beyond Heaven Mountain, he did not reject them at the door. Of course, he was not particularly enthusiastic either, and he had a good sense of propriety. The head of Beyond Heaven Mountain, Wu Yunliang, personally made this trip. Looking at Zhu Yi in front of him, who was already at the Yuanying stage, he secretly sighed in his heart. After saying goodbye to Zhu Yi, he stood in the middle of the mountains, his thoughts flying. A middle-aged man, who looked to be about the same age as him, who was also at the Yuanying stage, stood to the side and said lightly, "Head Senior Marshal Brother, this is a rare opportunity. Haven't we been biding our time for this opportunity?" Wu Yunliang expressionlessly looked at the middle-aged man. "Junior Marshal Brotherly, what I am worried about is that no matter if this step is right or wrong, our Beyond Heaven Mountain may not be able to recover." The middle-aged man surnamed Li was silent for a long time, and finally sighed. "If this is really the case, then it is fate." Wu Yunliang no longer looked at him, and looked at the flowing clouds in the sky. Yes, man proposes, God disposes. Xianmen Tianzong received the visiting small and medium-sized sections. Although it was only preliminary contact, and there was no substantial progress in many matters, their overall attitude was quite magnanimous, and their way of doing things was not domineering. When the news spread, the large sects that were observing gradually felt more confident, and they began to contact Xianmen Tianzong one after another. And the first to visit was the Great Qin dynasty. King Anliang, Shi Zongyue, personally came to Yujing Mountain. Speaking of which, this primordial spirit returning to Void Stage Big Shot was quite powerful in the Great Qin dynasty. However, in order to communicate with Xianmen Tianzong, he had to frequently run errands like this. After all, among the important figures of the Great Qin dynasty, he was the most familiar with Xianmen Tianzong. Shi Zongyue brought the opinion of the Great Qin dynasty, which acknowledged Xianmen Tianzong's dominant control over the Xianmen realm, but hoped that Great Qin could also send people to the Xianmen realm to participate in the development of this undeveloped medium-class world. In exchange, Great Qin was willing to unconditionally support Xianmen Tianzong's immigration plan. Chapter 636. According to the information that Xianmen Tianzong had intentionally revealed, the Qin dynasty was very interested in the water marrow crystal and evil-warding purple gold in the Xiantian realm. They hoped to send people there and obtain the rights to mine them. On one hand, it would be difficult to guarantee the supply if they were to purchase them through communication channels. On the other hand, Xianmen Tianzong would have complete control over the Xiantian realm. This was something that the Qin dynasty did not want to see. The Qin dynasty hoped to obtain the rights to enter the Xiantian realm through supporting Xianmen Tianzong's immigration plan. They had no interest in controlling the vast territory of the Xiantian realm and the entire medium-class world. They only asked for the rights to mine the water marrow crystal and evil-warding purple gold. Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong wanted to migrate to the Xiantian realm and reproduce. They needed a basic population. In the human world of the divine land, ordinary people lived a stable life. There were very few refugees. Although it was a cultivation world, ordinary people still valued their homeland very much. Voluntary migration was not an easy thing to do. Of course, directly coercing people was another matter, but this was not a wise method. The Qin dynasty had a large number of people. With the government's orders and Xianmen Tianzong's generous land treatment, migration would be much easier. The people who migrate are all originally under the rule of the Qin dynasty. If they enter the Xiantian realm and reproduce in the future, who will the Xiantian realm belong to? Shi Tianhao cursed silently. Zhu Yi said silently, this will depend on the education of the next few generations. If we want to migrate, we will have to move our entire clan here. We will completely cut off our ties with the outside world and grow up here. We will naturally exclude those who come with a mission. There won't be many of them. Otherwise, the Qin dynasty will be looking for trouble. Since they have put forward such conditions, there might be some sand mixed in, but overall, ordinary people will still be the majority. They have to make things convenient for us as much as possible. Otherwise, there is no need to talk. Lin Feng naturally knew what his disciples were talking about, but he didn't plan on taking advantage of the Qin dynasty. Lin Feng smiled faintly at Shi Zongyue, then suddenly changed the topic. King Anliang, I just remembered that the heaven mystic realm produces another kind of resource. Shi Zongyue's heart skipped a beat, but his expression remained unchanged as he asked, Oh? I don't know what it is, but I hope that the celestial sect of wonders can show me. Lin Feng chuckled and softly recited 3 words, Origin magnetic steel. Shi Zongyue suddenly fell silent. Although the expression on his face didn't change, he was already laughing bitterly in his heart. Origin magnetic steel was a very special cultivation resource. It contained the magnetic force of 2 poles, and this magnetic force was very special. After refining it with a secret method, each piece of origin magnetic steel would be independent of each other, but it could also establish a mysterious magic power connection. Moreover, it was not a one-to-one communication, but a one-to-many, or even a many-to-many communication. For ordinary cultivators or sects, this thing was most commonly used. Apart from being a communication tool, it was also used by the Dao soldiers nurtured by the great powers to form formations. Speaking of Dao soldier formations, one had to mention the Great Zhou dynasty's Divine Martial Immortal Extermination Formation. The Great Zhou dynasty's Divine Martial Army was the only army in the world that was organized and assembled on a large scale. It didn't require the participants to cultivate the same Dao technique and could form a formation to gather everyone's power. Through the Divine Martial Immortal Extermination Formation, everyone, from primordial spirit cultivators to chi refinement cultivators, could link their magic power together and become one. In the cultivation world, once the difference in cultivation level reached a certain level, quantity lost its meaning. Great cultivators could move mountains and fill seas with a flip of their hands. They could kill countless low-level cultivators with a single palm strike. If the difference in cultivation level was too great, quantity could not make up for quality. On the other hand, the Divine Martial Immortal Extermination Formation and other Dao soldier systems did not simply carry out the superposition of quantity. Through profound methods, it caused the quantitative change to finally lead to a qualitative change, completely changing the pattern of power. From this, it allowed low-level cultivators to have the ability to fight against high-level cultivators. In the battle of vanquishing Buddhism in the past, facing the Great Thunder Temple's Mountain Protection Formation, one of the top formations in the human cultivation world, the Vairocana Formation, several tens of thousands of Divine Martial Army cultivators worked together and forcefully blew it open. Even though they had the help of the revered formation breaking drum, this battle result was still extremely shocking. This kind of qualitative change was not limitless, but it was enough to attract everyone's attention. Other sects nurture Dao soldiers, because they all use the same secret method to cultivate, their numbers are in the end limited. The beauty of the Divine Martial Immortal Extermination Formation is that it can link the magic power of cultivators who cultivate different Dao techniques into one, forming a formation. The divine martial immortal extermination formation was rumored to have been created by the Marquis of Xuanji, Zhu Hongguo. But in fact, this method originated from the secret method used by the Grand Emperor, who ended the immemorial epoch, to train the soldiers under him. After the fall of the Grand Emperor, the secret method was gradually lost until the Great Zhou Empire excavated the Grand Emperor's ruins and obtained the damaged Grand Emperor Palace. Only then did this secret method see the light of day. After Zhu Hongguo organized and modified it, it finally became the current divine martial immortal extermination formation. Other than the secret method of formation, to achieve the best effect, it naturally needed the coordination of other things. When the Great Zhou Empire forged the standard equipment for the divine martial army cultivators, they would specially add magnetic steel to strengthen the connection of magic power between the soldiers and make it easier for the general to command. But unfortunately, the production of magnetic steel in the divine land was extremely low, far from enough to satisfy the needs of the divine martial army. In these years, other than searching for magnetic steel veins, the Great Zhou Empire also tried to find a substitute for magnetic steel, but there was no great harvest. At this time, if a large and high-quality magnetic steel vein suddenly appeared in front of Liang Pan and Zhu Hongguo, they would definitely be happy to accept it. With Xianmen Tianzong's own strength, if they wanted to rob it, they would have to think twice. But if it was just to help with immigration, then the Great Zhou Empire would be happy to do this business. Their need for magnetic steel was much greater than Great Qin's need for water marrow crystals and evil-warding purple gold. And if Great Zhou obtained a sufficient supply of magnetic steel, their strength would increase correspondingly. Because it was of the same lineage as the Grand Emperor, if the divine martial immortal extermination formation's power was raised to the extreme, it could even affect the Grand Emperor Palace. Once the Grand Emperor Palace recovered to its former peak, it would be a powerful creation magic treasure. If it could be improved further, it would be even more terrifying. Now, although everyone was facing Taishu Temple together, as the two great dynasties, Great Zhou and Great Qin still had conflicts. The other party's sudden increase in strength was a threat to both Taishu Temple and himself. Lin Feng flipped his palm and a piece of pure white metal ore appeared in the center of his palm. Shi Zongyue didn't even need to use his divine sense to scan it, and he could recognize that this was an unpurified magnetic steel ore. Although it was just a raw ore, it was very rich in magnetic steel. As an ore, its quality was very good. Lin Feng lightly tapped the air with his finger, and an illusion of light appeared, reflecting a mountain range. As the focus shifted, it went deep into the mountain range, and an entire vein of white light appeared in front of Shi Zongyue. The vein emitted a powerful magnetic force, forming a violent disturbance. With Lin Feng's magic power, even the illusion of light shook slightly when he crossed the void. Seeing this, Shi Zongyue immediately knew that what Lin Feng said was true and sighed inwardly. Liang Pan and Zhu Hongguo were both ambitious. Strictly speaking, Lin Feng wouldn't be happy to see Great Zhou's strength increase, but compared to Xianmen Tianzong, the Qin dynasty would undoubtedly be under more pressure. The Qin dynasty couldn't tolerate the Great Zhou dynasty obtaining magnetic steel in exchange for something else. They might even consider joining forces with the Great Zhou dynasty to pressure Xianmen Tianzong, but magnetic steel was definitely out of the question. They could tolerate the divine martial immortal extermination formation, but if it could really improve the Grand Emperor Palace, it would be unacceptable no matter what. When the two sides negotiated, the side with less weight naturally couldn't insist on their original opinion when facing the side with more weight. Lin Feng also left some leeway, allowing the cultivators of the Great Qin dynasty to enter the Heaven Mystic Realm to investigate the actual reserves of the water marrow crystals, evil-warding violet gold, and other mines. From there, he could determine the amount that would be delivered to the Great Qin dynasty during each transaction. He gave them some preferential treatment in this regard to ensure a large supply. The news of the magnetic steel didn't spread, and only Xianmen Tianzong and the Great Qin dynasty knew about it. Now that the deal with the Great Qin dynasty had been completed, Xianmen Tianzong would naturally prevent the magnetic steel from flowing into the Great Zhou dynasty. The Great Qin dynasty would help Xianmen Tianzong migrate. With Xianmen Tianzong in control of the situation, the Great Qin dynasty naturally wouldn't play any tricks and would fully cooperate. During the negotiations, Shizong Yue, Stonefeather, and the other higher-ups of the Great Qin dynasty had communicated with each other. In the end, everyone in the Great Qin dynasty felt quite helpless. After finalizing the intention to cooperate with the Great Qin dynasty, Lin Feng started to receive the next group of guests. The focus of the discussion this time was the dark light meteoric steel. Dark light meteoric steel was one of the 6 great metals in the world. It was one of the best materials to refine flying swords and other metal weapons. As long as 1 or 2 grams or even a few grams were put into a flying sword, the strength of the flying sword would increase by a level, and it would also have special uses that were different from normal swords. When the Shizhou city's Xianmen Tianzong first opened their gates, the Great Zhou dynasty sent 10 kilograms of dark light meteoric steel as a congratulatory gift. The dark light meteoric steel that the Great Zhou dynasty sent naturally wasn't raw ore, but a refined, ready-made treasure. 10 kilograms didn't sound like much, but relative to its uses and production, it was actually a very large number. At that time, the Celeritas sword sect's ancestor Qing Wei, the Blaze sword sect's ancestor Fei Hua, and the other Yuanying ancestors were all extremely envious. This was a transaction between the Great Zhou and Xianmen Tianzong. If it was a small or medium-sized force, they would have directly robbed it. And one of the most important resources that Xianmen Tianzong discovered in developing the Xiantian realm this time was an entire dark light meteoric steel vein. The reserves of the vein were enormous and the quality was also quite good, surpassing most of the dark light meteoric steel veins in the Divine Land. The same amount of raw ore can be refined into more dark light meteoric steel. Such a vein, other than satisfying Xianmen Tianzong's own use, is also a very important chip in Lin Feng's hands. The Old Sword Immortal, the Star Constellation Sword Venerable, the Desolate Sword Venerable, and the Thunderbolt Sword Venerable who appeared in front of Lin Feng right now all came for this reason after receiving the news. For sword cultivators, if they could add in dark light meteoric steel when refining swords, it would be a huge improvement. Everyone, we must admit that Xianmen Tianzong is very powerful today. If we negotiate with them alone, we will inevitably be at a disadvantage. The Old Sword Immortal was the first to arrive at Kunlun Mountain and specifically waited in the mountain ridge, intercepting the Star Constellation Sword Venerable and the others, contacting them to come together. Only if we join forces and negotiate with Xianmen Tianzong can we achieve the desired effect. Chapter 637. The Sword Immortal ascended Yujing Mountain with mixed feelings. The relationship between the Heavenly Sword sect and Xianmen Tianzong was a little awkward. The low-level cultivators of the Heavenly Sword sect might not know, but as a core elder, the Sword Immortal clearly knew that behind his sect stood the conservative faction of the Taishu Temple. The Heavenly Sword sect could rise strongly and occupy the second position in the Nine Heavens Sword League, second only to the Shushan Sword sect. At the same time, it also became the second holy land of swordsmanship in the world. In addition to their own continuous development, the support of the Taishu Temple played a great role. The Taishu Temple needed the existence of a force within the Nine Heavens Sword League to restrain the Shushan Sword sect. It did not need to be too strong, but at least to ensure that the Nine Heavens Sword League was not unified. Since ancient times, the Shushan Sword sect had always had the opinion of unifying the entire Nine Heavens Sword League. It was also because of the support of the Taishu Temple that the Shushan Sword sect had always tolerated such a rebel. The younger generation of Shushan cultivators looked down on the Heavenly Sword sect, thinking that they could not compete with their own sect. In fact, they were all wondering why the high-level masters of the sect would allow the existence of such a swordsmanship sect that challenged their authority. But the primordial spirit big shots of Shushan also knew that the Heavenly Sword sect was actually the spokesperson of the Taishu Temple in the Nine Heavens Sword League, just like the Sun Moon Sword sect was the spokesperson of the Great Qin dynasty, and the Canghai Sword sect was the spokesperson of the Great Zhou dynasty. At the beginning, the relationship between the Heavenly Sword sect and Xianmen Tianzong was actually good, especially after the Tianjia Peak sword trials, the relationship between the two sides became even closer. But after the Battle of West Hill City, Lin Feng united the Great Zhou, the Great Qin, the Purple Cloud Dao, the Northern Militant Royal Court, and other forces to stand on the same side and oppose the Taishu Temple. The Heavenly Sword sect was caught between the two sides and became awkward. Although the Heavenly Sword sect did not express hostility, and Xianmen Tianzong did not really see it as a vassal of the Taishu Temple, the relationship between the two sides instantly cooled down. Speaking of which, this was something that Lin Feng felt regretful about. However, everything had its pros and cons. As long as the pros outweighed the cons, it was fine. Therefore, Old Sword Immortal's visit this time was a little uncertain. If it was before the Battle of West Hill City, based on the relationship between the Heavenly Sword sect and the Celestial sect of Xian Gate, the Dark Light Meteoric Iron in the Mystic Heaven realm would be supplied to the Celestial sect of Xian Gate. As an ally, the Heavenly Sword sect would definitely be the best choice if they wanted to sell it. But now the situation is very hard to say, so Old Sword Immortal specially stayed in the Kunlun Mountains area for a period of time, waiting for the big shots of the other sword sects to arrive, and then he will first carry out a negotiation, discussing and coming to an agreement, then they will join forces and pay a visit to Lin Feng. With the strength that Lin Feng had displayed at the moment, in the entire Divine Land, only the Taishu Temple, the Shushan Sword Sect, the Great Qin Dynasty, and the Great Zhou Dynasty could truly negotiate with him on an equal footing. If the Reincarnation Sect could produce a powerful super giant who could unify the 6 paths of reincarnation and restore the power of the Reincarnation Sect when Daoist reincarnation was still alive, then they could barely be considered the 5th sect. Other than that, even forces like the Heavenly Sword Sect, the Northern Militant Royal Court, the Purple Cloud Dao, and the Canghai Sword Sect would not have the confidence to face Lin Feng alone. Even if these forces joined forces, they still did not have the confidence to face Lin Feng. Old Sword Immortal and the others were thinking about how to fight for the best conditions in the negotiations while climbing the mountain to visit Lin Feng. Who knew that Lin Feng would play Tai Chi with their visit? It was just a casual chat, and once it came to specific matters, he would change the topic. Old Sword Immortal and the others were anxious, but they could not force Lin Feng to directly respond, so they could only deal with it gloomily. Could it be that someone has already taken the lead? Old Sword Immortal's thoughts spun rapidly. Who could it be? The Blaze Sword Sect has always followed closely behind Shushan, it can't be them. The Canghai Sword Sect is one with the Great Zhou Dynasty, the Sun Moon Sword Sect is one with the Great Qin Dynasty, it's all possible. The Celeritas Sword Sect has already completely separated from Shushan, and they also do not attach themselves to other large forces. Could it be that they chose to board the ship of Xianmen Tianzong? The few great sword cultivators were continuously guessing in their hearts. Seeing the situation, Lin Feng did not interrupt them, saying with a smile, "In the Xianmen realm, our sect has indeed discovered dark light meteoric iron, but the mine's environment is complex, and we still need some time to explore. I also need to wait for the disciples to report back, fellow cultivators, please don't be impatient." What could Old Sword Immortal and the others say at this time? They could only nod their heads helplessly. After sending them down the mountain and temporarily settling them on the cloud peak, Lin Feng sat in the All Heavens Hall. After a while, 2 figures reappeared in the hall. One of them was a middle-aged man in yellow with a calm expression, emitting a strong wave of power. He was the current sect master of the Wilderness Sword Sect, Sword Venerable of the Wilderness. The other was an old man in black with a blue thunderbolt pattern on his lapel. His beard and hair were all fluttering, and he looked extremely powerful. He was the current sect master of the Thunderbolt Sword Sect, Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt. Both of them left and returned. After seeing each other, they glanced at each other and slightly nodded their heads in greeting. Then they turned their heads to look at Lin Feng together. "Sect Master Lin, do you have something to say to us by asking us to stay?" Lin Feng smiled. Just now, he was the one who secretly transmitted his voice, asking them to return. "Sword Venerable of the Wilderness, please wait a moment." Lin Feng nodded at Sword Venerable of the Wilderness, then he looked at Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt and said lightly, "The Dark Light Meteoric Iron is produced in the Xian Tian realm. The Thunderbolt Sword Sect and another sect will have priority in supplying it. What do you think? Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt's pupils shrank slightly. The Thunderbolt Sword sect had always been on good terms with the Sky Sword sect in the Nine Heaven Sword Alliance. They were not the vassals of the Sky Sword sect, but they were allies. Most of the time, they advanced and retreated together in the Nine Heaven Sword Alliance. What Lin Feng was doing was equivalent to asking the Thunderbolt Sword sect to get rid of the Sky Sword sect. Not long ago, Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt had reached an agreement with Old Sword Immortal to cooperate with Xianmen Tianzong. The Thunderbolt Sword sect, the Sky Sword sect, the Wilderness Sword sect, and the Constellation Sword sect had joined forces to fight for the Dark Light Meteoric Iron. Now, the Thunderbolt Sword sect would obviously benefit from Lin Feng's offer. However, once they accepted Lin Feng's offer, it would be equivalent to parting ways with the Sky Sword sect. In other words, they would be parting ways with the Taishu Temple. The relationship between the Sky Sword sect and the Taishu Temple was too close. They had obtained a lot of resources and benefits from the Taishu Temple and had gradually become one with the Taishu Temple. It was impossible for them to get off the ship at the last minute and change to Xianmen Tianzong's ship. However, the Thunderbolt Sword sect was different. The alliance with the Sky Sword sect was just an alliance of benefits and mutual benefits. They could change sides at any time. The only problem was how to choose and whether it was worth it. Silently, Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt looked at Lin Feng. In the Battle of West Hill City, Xianmen Tianzong, or rather, Lin Feng himself, had shown great strength. He had even plotted to overthrow the Taishu Temple. However, could he really succeed in the end? Naturally, some Dark Light Meteoric Iron would not make the Thunderbolt Sword sect change sides and stand on the opposite side of the Taishu Temple. Both Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt and Lin Feng did not think so. Today was just the beginning and a signal. Lin Feng had extended an olive branch. It depended on whether Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt dared to take the gamble. After a long silence, Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt suddenly asked, "Sect Leader Lin, apart from the Thunderbolt Sword sect, who is the other party?" It could not be the Wilderness Sword sect. Otherwise, Lin Feng would have made it clear. Lin Feng glanced at Sword Venerable of the Wilderness, smiled slightly, and did not speak. At this moment, a third figure appeared in the hall. It was a middle-aged man with a jade-like face and black hair that was like a waterfall. He looked to be in his 40s, with only 2 strands of snow-white hair hanging down from the sides of his temples. His eyes were full of majesty. Celerita's Sword sect leader, Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt. Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt came to a realization. The Celerita's Sword sect has indeed boarded the ship of Xianmen Tianzong. After musing for a moment, he cupped his hands towards Lin Feng. "The items traded with your esteemed sect, the hidden sect will properly prepare them. If sect leader Lin has any needs, you can also speak up, the hidden sect will prepare them." Lin Feng smiled. "I heard that your sect has a special product called Blue Lightning Crystal. Let's use this item as the exchange. The specific exchange price will be negotiated by my sect's disciples. We don't need to talk anymore." Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt nodded. That's how it should be. Blue Lightning Crystal was his Thunderbolt Sword sect's most precious resource. Its value was hard to estimate. Lin Feng turned his gaze towards Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness. He saw that Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness's expression was as usual, calm as before. He did not feel the slightest bit annoyed because the Celeritas and Thunderbolt sects divided up the Dark Light Meteoric Iron cleanly. He was very clear that since Lin Feng had specially asked him to stay, it was impossible that he was bored to the point of teasing him. Lin Feng also smiled. "Compared to the Dark Light Meteoric Iron, I believe that you will be more interested in this item." As he spoke, Lin Feng stretched out his hand and drew a line in the void. A light and shadow illusion appeared. The scene in the light and shadow was a desert like the Gobi Desert. Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness did not speak. Silently watching. Sword Venerable of the Thunderbolt and Celeritas silently watched the light and shadow. The scenery in their field of view changed rapidly. It fell from the sky to the desert. Moreover, it kept going down, going deep into the sand layer. Suddenly, a wisp of dim light lit up in the pitch-black darkness. The dim light scattered everywhere and formed light balls. Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness, who had always been calm, showed a rare look of astonishment. This is, the 9 Serenities Jade? This thing has always been found in the demon world of vast land of infinite region. I didn't expect to see it in this medium-class world. The 9 Serenities Jade, a rare treasure of heaven and earth, was an excellent auxiliary material for refining weapons. Not only could it improve the quality of celestial devices and even magic treasures, but it could also improve the success rate of refining. At the same time, in the process of refining weapons with the 9 Serenities Jade, cultivators could also comprehend many principles and concepts of the integration of all things. At the same time, this treasure inherited the aura of the remote antiquity, which was very helpful for comprehending the concept of the desolation of all things in the remote antiquity. The most inherited ancient book of the Wilderness Sword sect was called the Great Desolation Sword Scripture. The 9 Serenities Jade was very helpful for the cultivation of the cultivators in the sect. At the same time, the Wilderness Sword sect was also a sect with extremely high attainments in refining weapons in the human cultivation world of the Divine Land. Every disciple of the sect had a good level of refining weapons. Although they were all sword cultivators, they had all kinds of celestial devices, which were strange and changeable. They could be regarded as an unusual group of sword cultivators in the world. In the holy lands of swordsmanship like Mount Shu, Thunderbolt, Tongtian and Celeritas, the cultivators in the sect had nothing but swords. They could conquer the world with a long sword. Not only was the Wilderness Sword sect different, but the number of celestial devices mastered by the disciples were even more diverse than that of other sects that did not practice sword cultivation. However, this was a unique cultivation technique that was derived from their Great Desolation Sword Scripture. Everything in the world was used as a sword, and then it was continuously fused and refined. In the end, one would obtain a Tao sword that belonged to oneself, and it was also the treasure of the successor of the Great Desolation. Chapter 638. The sword cultivators of the Wilderness Sword sect were unusual. From the beginning of the foundation establishment stage, they would refine a large number of celestial devices. Not all of them were swords. Armors, accessories, elixir furnaces, Taoist robes, and even sabers, spears, swords, and sticks were all possible. It all depended on the cultivator. Before the elixir formation stage, the cultivator would combine all the celestial devices that he had refined into a furnace and refine them together. Finally, he would get a magic sword. Then, using the unique method of the Great Desolation Sword method, he would entrust his divine sense to the magic sword, which would accompany him to overcome the difficulties of the Golden Elixir period. After the success of the elixir formation stage, the magic sword would be refined again and upgraded to the level of a Golden Elixir period celestial device. It would also become the first celestial device of the sword cultivator of the wilderness after the elixir formation stage. Then, the sword cultivator of the wilderness would begin his second round of cultivation. Just like in the foundation establishment stage, he would refine a large number of celestial devices again, but this time they were all in the Golden Elixir period. There were many kinds of celestial devices. He could choose the powerful celestial devices in the sect as a template, or he could create his own ideas and innovate. When the sword cultivator of the wilderness reached the peak of the late Golden Elixir period, he would refine all the celestial devices in the Golden Elixir period and get a natal magic sword. Then, he would entrust his divine sense to the sword and go through the Void Thunder tribulation together. It was the same when he reached the Yuanying period. He would repeat the cycle again until he reached the primordial spirit realm. If he reached the primordial spirit and refined his own natal magic weapon, then the cycle would come to an end. This was the cultivation method passed down in the Wilderness Sword sect since ancient times. All things were swords and finally returned to the same source to help the cultivator rush to a higher realm. This method had its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that it was easier to break through the bottleneck of a big realm and improve one's cultivation. The disadvantage was that refining a celestial device was very time-consuming. For most cultivators, time was always the most precious thing. If a cultivator spent a lot of time on refining, he was destined to spend less time on Taoist method cultivation, Dharma power accumulation, and sword principle actual combat training. This method did not have any special requirements for the total number of celestial devices refined in a big realm. However, the more celestial devices there were, the stronger the natal magic sword refined at the peak of the realm would be, and the greater the chance of breaking through the realm would be. This involved the problem of making a choice. Not only did the cultivators have to make their own choices, but the elders of the sect also had to teach them in accordance with their aptitude. They had to accurately judge the potential of the cultivators in all aspects and help them formulate the best plan. There were thousands of great ways and each was different. The cultivation method of the Wilderness Sword sect could be regarded as a big oddity in the human cultivation world of the Divine Land. For the cultivation of the Wilderness Sword sect, the 9 Serenities jade was undoubtedly an extremely valuable resource and help. For the Wilderness Sword sect, it was undoubtedly more important than the dark light meteoric iron. However, the 9 nether jade transformation had only appeared in the demon race world, Tianhuang mainland, and it was rare. Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness calmed himself down and looked up at Lin Feng. Lin Feng said with a smile, "I hope our sects can have a closer cooperation in the future." "It's our honor." Sword Master of the Great Wilderness was silent for a while. He had already understood what Lin Feng meant. Slowly, he nodded his head. After settling the matter with the 3 sword sects and sending the 3 people off the mountain, Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao returned to the All Heavens Hall. The two reported to Lin Feng together. Lin Feng nodded his head and said with a smile, "During this period of time, you guys will also be busy in the Xiantian realm. But don't relax, this is also a kind of experience." Zhu Yi replied, "Master, please rest assured, we understand. There are thousands of great ways. We don't necessarily have to cultivate this kind of way, but after experiencing it, there will always be benefits." "Yes, that's right." Lin Feng nodded his head with a smile. Shi Tianhao asked, "Master, choosing the Wilderness Sword sect and not the Constellation Sword sect is because of the Qin dynasty?" Lin Feng and Zhu Yi listened and laughed at the same time. "You're right. In the 9 Heavens Sword Alliance, the Blaze Sword sect and the Celeritas Sword sect have always been close to Shu Mountain. The Celeritas Sword sect gradually changed their stance and began to lean towards neutrality. Tianjia Peak Sword Trials, visiting Yujing Mountain, until the Battle of Shiling City, the Celeritas Sword sect began to lean towards Xianmen Tianzong. Among the remaining sects, the Heavenly Sword sect was on the side of Taishu Temple, the Sun Moon Sword sect leaned towards the Qin dynasty, the Canghai Sword sect leaned towards the Great Zhou dynasty. The Thunderbolt Sword sect and the Heavenly Sword sect allied, while the Constellation Sword sect and the Wilderness Sword sect were always neutral. But since the start of the Tianjia Peak Sword Trials, the Constellation Sword sect was gradually roped in by the Qin dynasty. Lin Feng split the 9 Heavens Sword Alliance this time, pulling the Thunderbolt Sword sect, Celeritas Sword sect and the Wilderness Sword sect into his camp. It was still the same, eating the meat and leaving some soup for others. Since the Qin dynasty had already spent a lot of effort on the Constellation Sword sect, then he wouldn't reach out. It was just that the Constellation Sword sect naturally wouldn't be able to enjoy first-hand access to the resources in the Xiantian realm. As the Thunderbolt Sword Venerable and the others left the Kunlun mountain range, the Old Sword Immortal and the Constellation Sword Venerable naturally understood the changes. The Constellation Sword Venerable didn't feel anything. He had already made his choice before. The changes in the current situation only made him further determined to get closer to the Qin dynasty. The Old Sword Immortal's feelings were complicated. All along, the Thunderbolt Sword sect and his Heavenly Sword sect had been on the same side, but now they had parted ways. At this time, the Old Sword Immortal had a clearer understanding of the big move that Lin Feng had made after the Battle of Shiling City. The situation of the human cultivation world in the Divine Land had really changed. The Old Sword Immortal and the Constellation Sword Venerable once again ascended the mountain to pay a visit. Lin Feng was similarly happy to receive them. Setting the Thunderbolt Sword Sect and the Celeritas Sword Sect as first-hand partners didn't mean that Xianmen Tianzong wouldn't do business with the Heavenly Sword Sect and the Constellation Sword Sect. Even if the Canghai Sword Sect, the Sun Moon Sword Sect, or even the Blaze Sword Sect came to visit, they would still exchange resources. However, in terms of treatment, price, and supply, they definitely wouldn't be as generous as the Thunderbolt Sword Sect. The Old Sword Immortal and the others originally came to seek the most generous treatment. After sending off the Old Sword Immortal and the others, Lin Feng still needed to receive the representatives of the Purple Sky Path and the Northern Militant Royal Court. On one hand, he needed to receive their congratulations, and on the other hand, he needed to have a closer discussion about the Xiantian realm. Towards these two close allies, Lin Feng's attitude was naturally different. For example, he allowed them to have a fixed number of disciples freely enter the Xiantian realm for a certain period of time. On the other hand, it would be much more convenient for Xianmen Tianzong's disciples to go to the territories of the two families. The Northern Militant Royal Court destroyed the Celestial Pools sect and now dominated the northern border. In a sense, even the Arctic Ice Sea was under their influence. After digesting the resources in this area and nurturing large amounts of high-level experts, their overall strength would definitely show explosive growth. Many of the resources of the northern border's snowy plains that Xianmen Tianzong needed would also be supported by the Northern Militant Royal Court. The Purple Sky Path also had a deep foundation. As for the development of the medium-class worlds, other than supporting the Jun family in the ancient Yuan-Tian realm, they also set foot in other medium-class worlds. Some of the scarce resources of the Divine Land were obtained by the Purple Sky Path. Xianmen Tianzong's relationship with the Purple Sky Path was even closer, so it was easier for them to obtain these resources. Some of the minerals in the Xiantian realm, the Purple Sky Path and the Northern Militant Royal Court were also interested. For example, the vital Yuan magnetic steel of the Great Zhou dynasty. The Purple Sky Path was one of the few forces in the Divine Land that also had a large-scale demand. During this period of time, Lin Feng could be said to have clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. Not using force to conquer, he had further expanded the influence of Xianmen Tianzong. This was also the reason why even in the face of a magic treasure embryo of creation, Lin Feng had to try his best to find ways to preserve the Xiantian realm. Of course, to preserve the Xiantian realm, one must first have enough strength to occupy it. Otherwise, other forces would also step in and take a share of the loot. What's more, they might even join forces to squeeze Xianmen Tianzong out of the picture. If such a medium universe fell into the hands of sects like the Celeritas Sword Sect and the Wilderness Sword Sect, they couldn't defend it by themselves. The Purple Sky Path and even the Northern Militant Royal Court couldn't do it. For Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong, it was a timely reign. In the Battle of West Hill City, Lin Feng successfully established his prestige and demonstrated his own force. The Xiantian realm greatly enriched the overall strength and resource reserves of Xianmen Tianzong. It improved the situation of Xianmen Tianzong being so poor that he only had force left. Not only did it improve Xianmen Tianzong's own development potential, but it also gave Lin Feng more room to operate in the process of communicating with the entire human race cultivation world. It was convenient to unite more people to gather around him. The magic treasure of creation was important, but this kind of seemingly inconspicuous sect foundation was also indispensable. However, how to deal with the contradiction between the golden ball of light at the bottom of the black pool and the loss of spiritual energy in the Xiantian realm depended on Lin Feng's ability. Over the past few days, Lin Feng himself remained on Yujing Mountain after receiving the group of Essence Soul bigwigs who had visited. In addition to a group of younger disciples who had to cultivate seriously, the practical personnel in the sect, headed by Dao Jiqiang, had begun to enter the Xiantian realm on a large scale and carried out development. Feng Biangji, Shi Zhongtian, Monk Dade, and Wu Tong were in charge of the Xiantian realm, so ordinary people didn't dare to invade. Tunten almost lived in the Xiantian realm, while Zhuge Fengling and her gold-digging mouse stayed there for a long time. They felt like they had entered heaven. In the past, Zhuge Fengling felt that her status in the desolate Sky Valley was rather awkward. Now that she was in the Xiantian realm, she felt like a fish in water. She had already reported to Lin Feng and Shi Tianhao that she was prepared to stay in the Xiantian realm. The other sects and forces that had reached a general agreement with Xianmen Tianzong also began to send people to apply to enter the Xiantian realm, hoping to survey the mineral veins or the production of spirit herbs so that they could determine the specific details of the cooperation. However, these applications were all rejected. Even the Great Qin dynasty, who had already made an agreement, was asked to postpone their entry on the grounds that Xianmen Tianzong's exploration of the Xiantian realm had not been completed. This world was occupied by Xianmen Tianzong, so there was nothing wrong with it. The other forces would also do the same when guarding their own treasure vaults, or even guard them more closely. However, if this continued for a long time, some suspicious people might smell something unusual and guess that there was a bigger secret hidden in the Xiantian realm. On Yujing Mountain, Lin Feng calmly sat on the fishing platform and revealed a faint smile. "Don't disappoint me." Chapter 639. While making preparations for the Heaven Mystic Realm side, Lin Feng was also looking over Xiaoyan's side. On Yujing Mountain, in a space of purple qi, Xiaoyan sat upright in a milky white sea of pure yang real fire. Around him, the nether evil flame, the sun real fire, the Nan Mingli fire, and the Xiantian tribulation flame formed by the four true fires floated up and down with him in the white sea of fire. Outside of the purple gas, Lin Feng calmly looked at this scene. Beside him was a girl in green sitting cross-legged. It was Xiao Zhen. She was also circulating her cultivation technique. In the girl's eyes, the golden light of fire continuously flashed. The rhythm of the golden flames mixed with red and blue light was the same as the rhythm of the flames flashing around Xiao Yan in the purple qi. Xiao Yan, who had kept his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes and looked at Lin Feng. "Master, I'm ready." Lin Feng smiled and nodded. "Go ahead and do it." Xiao Yan let out a clear whistle, and the golden elixir of the true fire in his body began to spin. His mind faintly merged with the void, and he could feel the gaze of heaven and earth on him. All his mana and divine abilities were operated to the extreme by him, and without any warning, a large crack suddenly split open in the air. A twisting thick lightning bolt struck down towards Xiao Yan's head. Lin Feng withdrew his magic power at this time. The void thunder tribulation had descended, and the help of outsiders would only be harmful. It was all up to the cultivator to withstand the test himself. Without Lin Feng's help to suppress it, the five true fires around Xiao Yan immediately showed signs of instability, but he did not panic. He circulated the Tao of Heavenly Virtue scripture. First, he used the 8 trigrams of the Great Way to stabilize the pure yang real fire, and then, step by step, he used the 4 symbols Heaven Opening Book as a foundation to control the other 4 true fires. At this moment, Xiao Yan was like an excellent driver, driving a carriage with 5 fierce horses and running wildly on the rugged mountain road. On both sides of the road, there were steep cliffs. If one was not careful, the carriage would be destroyed and the passengers would be smashed to pieces. Apart from external enemies who might take advantage of the situation, Little Yen is facing the most dangerous nascent soul formation thunder tribulation since ancient times, if she goes through it alone. Lin Feng's expression also became rather stern. He stared at Xiao Yan, who was surrounded by the true flames of tribulation lightning and faced internal and external problems. No one could help Xiao Yan when he was going through the lightning tribulation, but if he really encountered a crisis of death, Lin Feng was confident that he could protect Xiao Yan's life. However, it was still extremely dangerous for Xiao Yan. This was a high-risk, high-reward challenge. If he lost, he might lose all his family's fortune, and he would be back to square one night. This would make Xiao Yan experience the misfortune of falling from heaven to hell in his youth. If he won, he would win handsomely. They were all formed Yuanying, and their actual supernatural powers were also different. Xiao Yan used the power of the 5 great true fires to help him form his nascent soul, and his power would be far beyond ordinary. What's that old saying again? Lin Feng stared at Xiao Yan and thought to himself, that's right, it's either the flower blooms and the riches, or the whole family is rich and powerful. However, Xiao Yan had obviously withstood the test. Previously, he had nourished his powers for a long time, making him an extremely outstanding driver. He could control the 5 fierce horses under him. Not only did he suppress them from causing trouble, but he also helped him on a smooth road on the rugged road. Now, it seemed that the days of dormancy because of the Nanmingli fire had brought great benefits to Xiao Yan's cultivation in the future, and it had a far-reaching impact. From the time he advanced to the late stage of the golden elixir, he could control 4 types of true fires, to now, he could form his nascent soul with 5 fires. It was all thanks to that period of dormancy. Not only did it hone his will, but it also allowed him to analyze his supernatural powers and powers. It was like a piece of iron that was already extraordinary, but after being quenched and polished, it became tougher and tougher. However, humans had their limits. As time passed, the 5 types of true fires became more and more violent, and they gradually showed signs of losing control. For Xiao Yan, who was in the late stage of the golden elixir, it was still difficult for him to control 5 types of true fires at the same time. However, it was also at this time that the void thunder tribulation gradually stopped. A clear light shone on top of Xiao Yan's head, and the golden elixir slowly rose, emitting a dazzling flame. In the flame, the figure of a small baby appeared. It was his Yuanying. Xiao Yan successfully passed the void thunder tribulation and formed his nascent soul. Once Yuanying formed, the state of Xiao Yan's supernatural powers and powers instantly changed, and the pressure from before suddenly disappeared. The baby, who looked very similar to Xiao Yan when he was young, waved his hand. Suddenly, a milky white flame appeared under his body, like a lotus seat holding him up. The black heaven tribulation flame turned into the image of the azure dragon, the true sun fire turned into the image of the vermilion bird, the nether evil flame turned into the image of the white tiger, and the Nanmingli fire turned into the image of the black tortoise. All of them circled around the baby, emitting a powerful force together. The next moment, the baby returned to the top of Xiao Yan's head. Xiao Yan also opened his eyes, looked at Lin Feng and Xiao Zhen, and said with a smile, "Master, Zhen, I did it." Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Finally, it was more daunting than dangerous. Xiao Zhen, also smiled and said, "Congratulations, brother Xiao Yan, for forming your nascent soul. Congratulations, host's direct disciple, Xiao Yan, for advancing to the stage of Yuanying." At the same time, a system notification rang in Lin Feng's ears. Because half of the host's direct disciples have successfully formed their nascent souls, the host is specially rewarded by the system. Among all the spirit-nurturing level magic treasures that the host currently owns, other than the Tao-proving level magic treasures, the host can choose one to upgrade to the incarnation level. In the past, when I encountered this kind of situation, I would be rewarded with upgrading a small realm of my own Tao. Lin Feng thought to himself, the 3 realms of primordial spirit are almost the same as the difference between the realms below primordial spirit. Xiao Yan and the others forming their nascent souls won't be able to guarantee me to reach the void returning level. Speaking of which, sometimes it's harder to upgrade a magic treasure's realm than cultivating, but I can casually upgrade a spirit nurturing level magic treasure. This is not bad. Lin Feng did not mind that the Bell of Fate could not be upgraded. It was his Tao-proving level magic treasure, and it was the right path for him to cultivate and refine it. Although he was also looking forward to the power of the Bell of Fate after it reached the incarnation level or Mahayana level. Lin Feng thought for a while. There's no hurry to upgrade which magic treasure, I'll see if I can get a more suitable one from the system. After Xiao Yan formed his nascent soul, he went into seclusion again to nourish his Yuanying and magic power. Meanwhile, Lin Feng officially set off for the Heaven Mystic Realm. During these days, apart from protecting Xiao Yan, he had also been calculating the overall flow of spirit qi in the Heaven Mystic Realm. This kind of calculation was meticulous down to the smallest detail, and the total amount was incomparably huge. It was very difficult for normal primordial spirit incarnations or even primordial spirit return to void realm cultivators to grasp the calculation without the slightest error, and only Lin Feng who had magical powers could calculate it clearly. During this period of time, Dao Jiqiang and the others who entered the heaven mystic realm had been making advanced preparations according to Lin Feng's instructions. When Lin Feng came to the heaven mystic realm, he silently sensed the fluctuation of spirit qi, and nodded at Dao Jiqiang and the others. Well done. Dao Jiqiang bowed and replied, I dare not delay sect master's important matters. Lin Feng made a hand seal with both hands, and the heaven mystic realm suddenly changed. Countless huge talismans and seals surged together, forming an extremely huge magic formation that enveloped the entire dimensional realm. It was the yin and yang life and death formation. When the 12 treasures were activated at the same time, the yin and yang life and death formation immediately set off a shocking power, causing the entire dimensional realm to shake faintly, and the spirit qi in the world suddenly became chaotic. Two extremes Feng, Buddhist monk Dade, Shi Zhongtian, and Wu Tong had been informed by Lin Feng before, so they were mentally prepared. However, the golden light ball at the bottom of the black pool was startled, and a majestic aura suddenly spread out. As the embryo of the magic treasure of fate, the spiritual sense of the golden light ball was extremely vast. Usually, it was almost integrated with the heaven mystic realm and did not show up at all. Only when there was a major change would it react. For example, like now. Lin Feng's hands kept changing the incantation, and one after another, his magic power was injected into the yin and yang life and death formation, pushing the formation to the extreme. The majestic power of the yin and yang reversal spread out, causing the whole heaven mystic realm enveloped by the formation to distort. The golden light ball at the bottom of the black pool became more and more restless. On one hand, Lin Feng activated the yin and yang life and death formation, and on the other hand, he comforted the golden light ball. Their divine senses communicated with each other. The golden light ball carefully tasted the power of the yin and yang life and death formation and gradually understood. Lin Feng wanted to integrate the yin and yang life and death formation with the heaven mystic realm. Then, through the power of the yin and yang reversal, the golden light ball and the original flow of spiritual qi in the heaven mystic realm would be balanced, and then transferred to the outside world. The majestic spiritual qi of the vast world would continue to nourish the black pool and the golden light ball, helping them grow and mature. It was hard to predict whether the golden light ball would eventually succeed in the heaven mystic realm. It was very likely that the spiritual qi of the heaven mystic realm would be sucked dry before it matured. But the total amount of spiritual qi in the vast world was abundant, so there was no need to worry about this. If the golden light ball was connected to the spiritual qi system of the vast world, the heaven mystic realm itself could also be preserved. It was the best of both worlds. The golden light ball gradually settled down and watched quietly. It watched as Lin Feng activated the yin and yang life and death formation and took it and the black pool into the circulation system of the two extremes. It watched as the boundary power between the heaven mystic realm and the vast world became temporarily blurred. This was destined to be a long process. Lin Feng needed to carefully control the yin and yang life and death formation. However, a few days later, Feng Liangji, who was guarding the boundary passage between the heaven mystic realm and the void battlefield, suddenly sensed someone approaching from the other side of the passage. The other party was extremely powerful. Impressively, he was a third-tier primordial soul realm expert at the Dao integration realm. He broke through Feng Liangji's blockade of the boundary passage and approached the heaven mystic realm. This person did not intend to enter the heaven mystic realm after breaking through the boundary passage. It seemed that he only wanted to determine the exact location of the heaven mystic realm in the void heavens and prevent the heaven mystic realm from getting lost in the void turbulence. After determining the location, he passed through the door but did not enter. Instead, he stood outside the barrier-like boundary power. Feng Liangji approached, but the intruder suddenly activated a beam of black light, intending to overturn heaven and earth and blur the boundary between life and death. So powerful. Feng Liangji's expression changed slightly. He immediately knew that he was no match for this person. This Dao technique inheritance is the same as that of King Qingguang and the other underworld hall cultivators, but it's many times more powerful. Chapter 640. From the outside, it looked like a mass of black energy condensed into the shape of a person. Its magic power was extremely powerful, but there was no comparison in the void, so it was impossible to tell its size. But when Feng Two-Poles flew over to meet the enemy, he discovered that the figure formed by the black energy was even larger than a 1,000-meter-tall mountain. The visual impact was very strong. The person rode on the black light and blocked the Two-Poles sky peak. Then, another destructive black light shot out, this time towards the heaven mystic realm. Lin Feng's expression didn't change. He activated the yin and yang life and death formation, and the entire heaven mystic realm was covered in a layer of light, isolating the terrifying black light. However, under the effect of the yin and yang life and death formation that reversed the universe, the mysterious heaven realm itself began to gather and twist, as if it had been twisted into two parts, like a gourd or an hourglass. Lin Feng tilted his head slightly. Xianli. The girl who had been standing silently behind him all this time stepped out into the void and arrived outside the mystic heaven realm through the realm passageway. Xianli patted the sword case on her back and opened it. Suddenly, a boundless murderous light gushed out. This light wasn't as deadly as the enemy's black light, but it was a more domineering destruction intent. Xianli slashed out with her sword, and a terrible wound was torn open in the void. Endless vitality was destroyed, as if a living being had been injured. Blood splattered everywhere. The enemy struck out with a palm, repelling the Two-Poles sky peak. Then, his hands swirled with silk-like black light that turned into a raging wave that met the terrifying heaven-punishing sword light. The overwhelming wave of black light was cut apart by the heaven-punishing sword light. However, the wave of light quickly spun like an ocean, turning into a giant whirlpool that could swallow the heaven-punishing sword light whole. It was going to trap the sword light. Xianli's pitch-black eyes suddenly turned crimson, and the sword intent around her became even more ferocious. A voice came from the giant formed of black energy. Master of the Celestial Gate, you live up to your reputation. I'm not sure I can defeat you, but you can't protect this dimensional realm. Protection was always passive. In a situation where the difference in strength between the two sides was not too great, the attacker would have a much greater advantage over the defender. With that, the giant formed from the black gas suddenly disintegrated in the void, turning into a black cloud. Within the black cloud, there was a faint brilliance flashing, and an extremely terrifying aura was emitted. The moment the aura was released, the expressions of Twin Peaks Feng, Shi Zhongtian, and the others instantly changed. This was because they could clearly feel the aura of a creator-grade artifact. Even the glowing golden sphere in the mystic heaven realm was shaking violently. Lin Feng carefully sensed it, but shook his head. It's not a creation-grade magic treasure, but, within the black clouds, a terrifying brilliance whizzed out, turning into an extremely vast and thick pillar of light that traversed the heavens. Its imposing manner seemed to be able to pierce through the entire vast 1,000 domains. Within the pillar of light, layers upon layers of black shadows flickered, as if the pillar of light contained many independent worlds. Every independent world contained a profound concept of power. Many independent worlds overlapped with each other, but they didn't fuse together. Instead, they formed a mysterious resonance, causing the power of this magnificent pillar of light to become extremely terrifying. It was as if the infinite great Tao was vibrating together, about to shatter the vast 1,000 domains. Xianli didn't say a word. Her long black and white hair fluttered behind her, and her eyes had completely turned blood red. The clear light of the Sky Destroyer sword in her hand surged to the extreme, and a streak of blood-red sword light surged out, slashing towards her opponent. Within the black clouds, rays of gray brilliance flowed, forming a Tao fruit. It was half black and half white, but it was not the condensation of the power of yin and yang, but the condensation of the power of life and death. The black half of the Tao fruit flickered, and gradually a figure appeared. It was the image of an old man with a long beard. His eyes were sharp, and the sword aura around him soared to the sky. He was like a peerless divine sword, about to slash the blue skies above and the yellow springs below. The long-bearded old man's figure appeared from the black half of the Tao fruit, and the next moment, he moved to the white half. When he reached the white half, the long-bearded old man's figure suddenly began to turn from illusory to real. A terrifying sword intent erupted from his body, and his index and middle fingers formed a sword. Immediately, a resplendent sword light flew out to meet Xian Li's blood-red sky destroyer sword light. As if two swords collided, the long-bearded old man's sword light was directly cut apart by the sky destroyer sword light. The blood-red sword light drew a mysterious trajectory between the heavens and earth, and continued to fall, directly killing the long-bearded old man. Just as the sky destroyer sword light continued forward, preparing to completely destroy the other party's Tao fruit, from the black clouds, a grey brilliance flowed, forming another life and death netherworld Tao fruit. This time, it was also half black and half white, and in the black half, a figure appeared. This figure was not the long-bearded old man, but a middle-aged man who looked like a Confucian scholar. This middle-aged man held a book of poetry in his hand, and suddenly, the sound of reading filled the void. A righteous force of heaven and earth, the power of the eternal Grand Spirit, spread out. As the brilliance of the Tao fruit flashed, the middle-aged Confucian scholar also moved from the black half to the white half. His whole body seemed to become real, and he stepped out from it. Endless words of the great Tao turned into a magnificent chapter, and it met the mournful sky destroyer sword light. The two sides collided in the void, and the brilliant words were all annihilated. After withstanding the opponent's continuous attacks, the blood-red sword light finally exhausted its strength. A voice came from the black clouds, "Good, this sword of yours has the potential to achieve creation. If you completely hone it, I'm afraid it will become a creation magic treasure." Feng Liangji watched from the side, and he was deeply shocked. This person is not afraid of the Sky Destroyer sword. With such strength, I'm afraid he is not any weaker than Xian Longsheng, Kuang Heng, and the others. Moreover, although the newcomer was on the defensive against Xianli, it did not affect him from attacking the heaven mystic realm from the other side. The terrifying light beam from before had already hit the boundary power of the heaven mystic realm, which was like the outer wall of the realm. It fiercely collided with the yin and yang life and death formation, trying to forcefully break the formation and destroy the heaven mystic realm. Master of the Celestial Gate, you have captured and killed a cultivator of the Underworld Hall. You will repay me with this dimensional realm. A deep voice came from the black clouds, shaking the void. In the depths of the black clouds, there was a vague figure that flickered, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. In front of this person, there was a book that was opened and floating in the air. The magnificent light beam formed by the power of many independent worlds became more and more powerful, and it hit the light screen of the yin and yang life and death formation until it was on the verge of collapse. Although it is not a real creation magic treasure, its strength is already very close. Lin Feng shook his head slightly. Back then, he had used the yin and yang life and death formation to fight against the real creation magic treasure Taishu Temple, so he had a good grasp of the opponent's strength. In a sense, the opponent's attack was comparable to the current sky-crushing sword, and even better than the Grand Imperial Palace he had encountered in the Cloudy Forest realm. Although the incomplete Immortal Dragon City was also extremely powerful, it was mainly reflected in its defensive power. Its offensive power was not outstanding among magic treasures of the same level. But now, the heaven-punishing sword was controlled by Yunli herself, and not by Lin Feng. Most of Lin Feng's energy was spent on the heaven realm, and he could not compare to Yunli's fusion with the sword, which boosted each other's magic power. The newcomer used his own Tao fruit magic power to block the sky-crushing sword, but he did not relax his attack on Lin Feng. As he said, it was not difficult for Lin Feng to protect himself in the face of such a strong attack, but it would be difficult to protect the heaven mystic realm. But after carefully sensing the changes in magic power, Lin Feng suddenly had another idea. "Oh, you came at the right time. You have helped me a lot. Maybe you can make my plan more perfect." Many thoughts flashed through Lin Feng's mind, and an even bolder plan gradually took shape. Lin Feng looked at the opponent's attack with a sneer. "I have this plan for a long time. Unfortunately, I am using the yin and yang life and death formation to fuse with the heaven mystic realm. Just relying on Yunli's attack power is a little lacking, so I had to settle for the next best thing and carry out the current plan." Now that you have delivered yourself to my door, you have fulfilled my wish. Lin Feng put his palms together, and the yin and yang life and death formation wrapped around the heaven mystic realm and retreated, as if it could not withstand the opponent's attack. The figure in the black cloud reached out and gently flipped a page in the scroll in front of him. The majestic pillar of light that was attacking the mystic heaven realm erupted with even more ferocious power. One minor world after another within the pillar of light began to collapse. The explosive power in that instant was almost comparable to a real creation magic treasure. And the light beam chose to attack the center of the heaven mystic realm's distortion. Because of the huge distortion power in the heaven mystic realm, the people inside the world could not feel the spatial changes, but from the outside, the whole world had been distorted into a shape similar to an hourglass. The smaller part in the middle was the place where the distortion power was the strongest, and it was also the intersection point where the two opposing forces converged. It was like the bearing in the center of a millstone, and this time, the light beam chose this place. The violent power burst out, directly broke the yin and yang life and death formation, and bombarded this intersection point. In an instant, the huge medium-sized world, with this intersection as the dividing line, was actually split in two. The people in the heaven mystic realm had not reacted, but Feng Liangji, who was in the void, could see it clearly. He could not help but be shocked, but then he found that something was wrong. The figure in the black cloud also exclaimed, I have to thank you. Lin Feng's calm voice came from the heaven mystic realm. The yin and yang life and death formation lit up again, and the intertwining black and white light flickered continuously, like a rope connecting the two divided worlds. Endless space folded and changed, and the power of the yin and yang life and death formation protected the heaven mystic realm, so that it would not collapse because of the split. At the same time, purple chi surged in the void, and a white jade mountain descended. It was Mount Yujing. Chapter 641. Yujing Mountain descended into the void. The branches of the Xiantian treasure tree swayed, breaking through the endless space. The surging cyclic purple qi continued to spread in all directions. After the Xiantian realm had been split into two, half of the space changed and its volume shrank rapidly. Lin Feng injected dermic power into it. Under the effect of the yin and yang life and death formation, the spirit qi flow in this half of the Xiantian realm that had collapsed gradually resonated with Yujing Mountain. The cyclic purple qi, like a sea of clouds, shrouded this half of the Xiantian realm. The purple mist surged and surrounded Jade Capital Mountain and half of the mystic heaven sector. Then, a colorful, glittering circle of light appeared at the periphery of the boundless sea of purple clouds, forming a perfect sphere. Yujing Mountain, the purple sea of clouds, the Xiantian treasure tree, and half of the Xiantian realm were all wrapped in this giant ball of light. Although Lin Feng was not on the mountain, his dermic power and divine consciousness resonated with the system of Yujing Mountain. Yujing Mountain seemed to have transformed into a complete world of creation. At the same time, half of the Xiantian realm was also integrated into it. Countless talisman characters appeared on the surface of the giant ball of light, guiding the spirit qi of the boundless world into it, perfectly connecting with the spirit qi of the boundless world. The spatial boundaries of the Xiantian realm blurred and merged with the boundless world. The power of the boundaries disappeared, and endless black water surged out, turning into a vast ocean. The black water was bone-piercingly cold, devouring all light. It nurtured the three power intense of pure yin, extreme cold, and darkness at the same time. Moreover, they had all reached an extremely profound realm. But in the center of the Black Sea, there was a powerful existence of extreme yang and extreme heat. It emitted endless light, opposite the Black Sea. Yin and yang blended together but did not interfere with each other. The vast Black Sea. At the foot of Yujing Mountain, the mountains and the sea were interdependent, incomparably harmonious. It was like the celestial mountains and divine seas of ancient times. It was a spectacular sight. Layers of purple energy floated above the sea, enveloping Yujing Mountain and the Xiantian treasure tree. The mountains and the sea were both wrapped up by the giant ball of light, like a brand new world. The spirit chi of the boundless world was continuously supplied to the Black Sea, giving birth to more golden-eyed black fish. It continued to operate in the same way, nourishing the golden ball of light hidden in the core of the Black Sea, helping it mature faster. At this moment, the golden ball of light had completely settled down. All that was left was the magnificent Black Sea that had merged with Yujing Mountain. After that, Lin Feng withdrew all the power of the yin and yang life and death formation to stabilize the other half of the mysterious heaven realm. With the help of Lin Feng and the yin and yang life and death formation, the remaining half of the mystic heaven realm gradually closed up. The twisted and folded space was completely restored, and the flow of spiritual energy in the world that had lost its balance also stabilized. The world inside didn't seem to have changed at all. Under the effect of the yin and yang life and death formation, only the black pool and the golden sphere were separated from the heaven mystic realm. Everything else had not changed. It was as good as before. Originally, Lin Feng had only wanted to change the flow of spiritual energy in the Black Pond, diverting the spiritual energy from the vast thousand world into the heaven mystic realm to fuel the growth of the golden light ball and replace the spiritual energy in the heaven mystic realm. But it wasn't stable, and Lin Feng had to spend a lot of time and energy to watch over it. He also had to leave the yin and yang life and death formation in the heaven mystic realm for a long time to maintain this new operating system until the golden light ball matured completely. But now, it was all over. It was completed in one go without any follow-up problems. The black pond and the golden light ball were completely separated from the heaven mystic realm, hanging under Yujing Mountain to receive nourishment from the spiritual energy of the vast thousand world. The heaven mystic realm, on the other hand, was independent and no different from other medium-class worlds. It only needed to operate normally on its own track. When the damaged boundary power in the heaven mystic realm was completely stabilized, Lin Feng could also withdraw the yin and yang life and death formation without any restrictions. In the heaven mystic realm, Lin Feng laughed. "I really have to thank you." As he spoke, he had already left the heaven mystic realm. A clear light shone over his head, and Yujing Mountain loomed in the void, bringing with it great pressure. Xian Li also returned to Lin Feng's side, her monstrous sword essence still pointed at the opponent in the black cloud. The figure in the black cloud was silent for a moment, then said slowly, "The master of the celestial gate is really good. That black sea originally belonged to this dimensional realm. There is something contained within it, and it actually contains the aura of a good fortune treasure." The figure's eyes shined with a strange light as he stared at Lin Feng and Jade Capital Mountain. Lin Feng glanced at him and said indifferently, "The book in front of you also contains the aura of a treasure of fortune. I'm also a little interested." As he said that, he patted the sword case on Xian Li's back. Xian Li became one with the case, and the sword was pulled out by Lin Feng. Then, a black and white light lit up on Lin Feng's body and plated a layer on the sword. Endless chants of the great Tao echoed in the void. Lin Feng waved his sword, and a blood-red heaven-punishing sword light mixed with black and white creation divine light flew out, slicing through the sky and directly splitting open the black clouds. The figure in the black cloud patted the scroll in front of him. As the pages flipped, many small worlds seemed to appear at the same time, stacking together to form a barrier that blocked Lin Feng's sword light. With a loud boom, the barrier shattered and the sword light dissipated. The shockwaves of the collision spread out in all directions, sweeping through the void. As Mahayana-grade treasures, the two peaks had to take the shockwaves seriously. Yujing Mountain glowed and resonated with the yin and yang life and death formation protecting the heaven mystic realm, shielding it from the shockwaves. With Yujing Mountain's protection, Lin Feng didn't have to worry about his opponent destroying the heaven mystic realm. After the collision ended, half a page of paper could be seen floating in the void of the universe, like a faint speck of light. It was Lin Feng and the heaven-punishing sword who had the upper hand, shaving off half a page of the opponent's scroll. However, it was also during this collision that the black cloud slowly dissipated. It turned into a vast expanse of black smoke that spread through the air and quickly disappeared without a trace. If I can obtain the treasures in the Black Sea and refine them into the Book of Life and Death, the Book of Life and Death will be completely refined and become a true creation treasure. And it will be one of the best creation treasures. A deep voice sounded in the void, lingering in the air. Lin Feng smiled faintly. The reverse is also true. He reached out and picked up the half-page that floated in the air. The half-page emitted a rich aura of creation and powerful magic power that kept vibrating. Although it was only a fragment, its power far surpassed that of ordinary treasures. With the addition of the Black Sea and the Golden Ball of Light, Yujing Mountain is in a completely new environment. I can't absorb it into my soul for now. Otherwise, I would have been able to kill this person. Lin Feng shook his head and suppressed the half-page. Still, it's a pleasant surprise to have obtained this item. He tried to figure out the concept of power within and recalled the life and death nether Dao fruit that Xianli had used when fighting with that person. He gained a better understanding of the king of the underworld's orthodoxy. A smile appeared at the corner of Lin Feng's mouth. Judging by his cultivation, I'm afraid he's already a top expert of the underworld hall. It's very likely that he's the hall master of the underworld hall. However, his incomplete creation treasure clearly has another owner. Interesting. Really interesting. Lin Feng flicked his sleeves and returned to the heaven mystic realm with Xianli and Feng Biangji, who had returned to their human forms. He first operated the yin and yang life and death formation to stabilize the heaven mystic realm's damaged domain power, so that it could heal as soon as possible and seal itself completely. Shi Zhongtian, Zen Master Dade, and the others had a deeper understanding of the flow of spiritual qi in the dimensional realm. At this moment, they could already sense that the flow of spiritual qi in the heaven mystic realm had completely changed. The phenomenon of spiritual qi exhaustion in the major mineral veins and medicinal valleys had completely disappeared. The problems that had previously plagued the heaven mystic realm had been perfectly resolved. From now on, the heaven mystic realm would be the same as other dimensional realms. As long as the mineral veins and spiritual plants were not overexploited and the mineral veins and medicinal valleys' spiritual veins were kept intact, they could be used for a long time. The heaven mystic realm would officially become Xianmen Tianzong's rear base. It would boost Xianmen Tianzong's overall strength and resource reserves in the coming days. Regarding Lin Feng, Shi Zhongtian had always listened to his grandson Shi Tianhao's descriptions. It was only when he went to the Black Pool with Lin Feng's Earth Sovereign's Dharma body that he had a more direct understanding of Lin Feng. Just the Dharma body's divine ability and Dharma power were enough to make him extremely fearful, and this was under the situation where they had not actually fought. This time, when Lin Feng separated the golden light ball from the heaven mystic realm, Shi Zhongtian had truly witnessed Lin Feng's means. When the enemy came to attack, it became the blade in Lin Feng's hand that helped him. Shi Zhongtian thought to himself, originally, I was still thinking about how to solve the conflict between the Dharma treasure of creation and the heaven mystic realm's resources. I didn't expect it to end up like this. The Celestial Gate Master probably already had a plan in mind at that time. With such means, it's no wonder that he was so confident. Lin Feng looked at Feng Biangji and Zen Master Dade. From now on, the two of you will still be in charge of the heaven mystic realm. We are ashamed, Feng Biangji and Zen Master Dade said at the same time. I'm afraid that we will fail you, but we will do our best. Lin Feng shook his head and smiled. It's all right. I will also pay attention to this place. He then turned to look at Pupil S. What about you? Will you stay here, or will you follow me back to Mount Yujing? After a pause, Lin Feng continued, the black pool where you originally lived has turned into a vast ocean, and it is connected to my mountain and sea. From today onwards, this ocean will be called the Yin-Yang Ocean, and it will be one with Mount Yujing. Pupil S thought for a while and said, I still want to teach and enlighten my people, so I will follow you back to the mountain. Lin Feng smiled and said, if that's the case, let's go. After returning to Mount Yujing, Lin Feng looked at the vast ocean at the foot of the mountain and kept thinking, the energy in the Yin-Yang Ocean can not only nourish the Dharma treasure of creation, but it also benefits Mount Yujing. This is killing two birds with one stone. Not bad, not bad. The problem of the heaven mystic realm was solved perfectly. Lin Feng was in a good mood, but there was one thing that made him feel strange. The people of the underworld hall knew about the existence of the golden ball of light. Lin Feng originally thought that they would definitely spread the news and cause trouble for Xianmen Tianzong. Lin Feng had even made preparations to deal with them, but after a long time, there was still no movement. Chapter 642. The other party did not spread the news. The preparations that Lin Feng had made beforehand were all wasted. Looks like you're up to something big. Lin Feng shook his head with a smile. After solving the problem of the creation Dharma treasure embryo, the development of the mystic heaven realm had no more worries. It officially entered the development stage. After being screened, the people from other sects and factions were finally allowed to enter. Although Lin Feng's action of separating the golden ball of light and the mystic heaven realm, as well as the battle, had ended in a short time, it had still alarmed some of the Essence Soul Realm bigwigs who were still lingering in the Kunlun mountain range. Everyone was bewildered, but no one knew the specifics. They could only make guesses in their hearts. Only the people on Jade Capital Mountain were shocked to discover that there was a magnificent black sea at the foot of the mountain. While they were baffled, they were also extremely shocked. The Yin-Yang Sea was temporarily designated as a forbidden area by Lin Feng. Apart from a limited number of people, no one else could enter. They could only look down at the white immortal mountain and the surging black sea with some awe. When Lin Feng returned to Jade Capital Mountain, Shi Tianhao asked curiously, "Master, the invading enemy is from the Underworld Hall?" "That's right. He should be one of the top experts in the Underworld Hall." Lin Feng turned his head and looked towards his disciples. "You guys might face this type of enemy in the future, you need to be prepared." Xiao Yan, Shi Tianhao, and the others nodded. Wang Lin said, "That person has actually cultivated a Dao fruit. He must be a third-tier Essence Soul Realm expert. His Dharma powers are also quite strong. Even Mr. Feng's Mahayana Dharma treasure is not his match." Lin Feng nodded. "That's right. This person cultivates the orthodox Dharma of the King of the Underworld. The Dao fruit he cultivated should be the legendary Life and Death Netherworld Dao fruit. The figure that emerged from his Dao fruit feels strange." Wang Lin frowned slightly. The moment it turned from black to white, the figure in the Dao fruit was like a real person. His dharmic powers and divine powers were extremely powerful. Lin Feng said faintly, "That's the function of the Life and Death Nether Dao fruit. It can refine the cultivators he killed into evil souls, retaining their cultivation and power from when they were alive. In a sense, it is similar to the Netherworld puppet manipulation divine art created by the Yellow Springs True Water, but it is even more powerful. This is because the Life and Death Netherworld Dao fruit can allow evil souls to be reborn in a short period of time. In fact, the Yellow Springs sect was one of the legacies of the King of the Underworld, but it was completely destroyed at the end of the Middle Era." Everyone was shocked. A true resurrection. The Netherworld Nirvana spell, which was created by the Netherworld True Water, originated from the Netherworld sect, which had already been annihilated. Its secret technique, the Netherworld puppet manipulation, could refine a person's soul into a puppet that would obey the user's orders. The puppet could retain its memories and self-awareness from when it was alive. It would only listen to the user's orders. However, the Netherworld puppet manipulation divine art was only a soul without a physical body. Although its combat power was well preserved and it could cast Dharma spells and divine powers when it was alive, there were still drawbacks. In particular, the Netherworld puppet manipulation divine art could only refine cultivators below the Essence Soul Realm into puppets. It was ineffective against those at the Essence Soul Realm. As for the Life and Death Nether Dao fruit, it could refine Essence Soul experts it killed into evil souls. In fact, the two Life and Death Nether Dao fruits that Xianli had fought previously contained a long-bearded elder and a middle-aged Confucian scholar. Both of them were third-tier Essence Soul Realm experts at the Dao Integration Realm. However, after they were killed, they were devoured and refined by the Life and Death Nether Dao fruit. In the previous battle, they were temporarily resurrected to fight Xianli. This person's Dharma has yet to be cultivated to the extreme. Lin Feng said indifferently. The two Dao integration experts that he refined into evil souls did not fully cast their powers. They were unable to condense their own Dao fruits. Otherwise, they would have been even stronger. Lin Feng put away the half-torn page and gained a deeper understanding of the underworld hall's dharma. The evil souls refined in the life and death nether Dao fruit can be transferred. I believe that these two evil souls were not personally refined by that person. Instead, they were inherited from someone else. That's why he was unable to use their full power. However, when his dharma is completely perfected and his divine powers and dharmic powers reach the peak, he should be able to control them freely. Even so, Wang Lin and the others were slightly shocked. Those were two Dao integration experts, yet they had been killed and refined into evil souls. The king of the underworld's dharma was indeed strange. Zhu Yi said solemnly, that middle-aged Confucian scholar's dharma and divine powers vaguely have the shadow of the ancient Confucian sect. Lin Feng nodded. In the ancient war to depose the king of the underworld, all the factions in the divine land joined forces, including the Confucian sect. Although they overthrew the king of the underworld's rule in the end, the human cultivation world suffered great losses. It was then that the ancient Confucian sect fell into decline. This middle-aged Confucian scholar most likely perished in that war. Zhu Yi sighed. Sacrificing oneself for righteousness is a role model for our generation. Xiao Yan frowned slightly. But master, where did that long-bearded elder come from? He seems to be a sword cultivator. Although he is inferior to master's heaven-crushing sword, his sword cultivation is already at the peak. But it's not the sword path of Shu Mountain. The Shu Mountain sword sect was domineering, but the phrase, all the swords in the world originate from Shu Mountain, was not a joke. Although the other sword sects never acknowledged it, the heavenly immortal sword Qi was the ancestor of all swords. In private, it was a consensus in the divine land. It was only when Lin Feng appeared with the heaven-crushing sword that this legend was broken. Before Lin Feng and the heaven-punishing sword, if one had to find a sword Dao technique that was independent of the sword Dao system derived from the immortal heaven sword Qi, at least not completely belonging to the Mount Shu sword Dao system, then there was only the emotionless heavenly sword and the greater void double extreme mystic origin sword art, these two sword Daos that originated from the void temple. That's why that long-bearded old man's sword path actually broke away from the path of Shushan's sword path, yet it's shockingly strong, immediately attracting the attention of Xiao Yan and the rest. Although the long-bearded elder was defeated by the black glass sword, he did not use his fruit of the way. In fact, he did not use his full strength. Xian Li stood behind Lin Feng, still expressionless and not saying a word. In ancient times, there was a super sect that was even more powerful than the Shu Mountain Sword sect and the Tempest Temple. It was almost comparable to the Taishu Temple. This sect was called the Elysium. Lin Feng said slowly. This was a long history, but it was not a secret. It was just that because it had been so long, most people only heard of the name and did not know much about this sect. Xiao Yan, Shi Tianhao, and the others looked at each other. I think I've heard of the name, but that's all. Lin Feng said, it's not strange that you don't know about it, because the Elysium was destroyed in the last years of the ancient era. The last human emperor, who was the ruthless sovereign, was deposed. Then, there was a war between the two worlds and the demon clan in the vast land of Tianhuang. It was an extremely tragic war. Even a super sect like the Elysium, which was comparable to the Taishu Temple, was completely destroyed. Lin Feng's expression didn't change, and he said calmly, the treasure of the Gate of Heaven is called the Great Wheel of Heaven. It is an extremely powerful magic treasure of the creation level. It can suppress the heavens and the realms, run amok in the 4 seas and 8 wastelands, and beat the ruthless emperor down from his throne. But even this Dharma treasure could not protect the Elysium from the great calamity. In the end, the Elysium was destroyed, and the great celestial will disappeared without a trace. Speaking of this, Lin Feng thought of something, and a slightly strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He did not continue. Xiao Yan and the others were immersed in the shock of the great calamity and the great calamity in the last years of the ancient era. The Elysium was a super sect that could challenge the Taishu Temple. It had countless experts and had the great celestial wheel. But it also came to its end after a series of wars. Looking further back, the Grand Emperor, the previous human emperors, was one of the strongest. He ended the Archaic Epoch, the founder of the Archaic Epoch. He had the Grand Emperor Palace, and his magic power was unparalleled. But in the end, he fell in the great battle with the demon race. In the Battle of West Hill City, Lin Feng was awe-inspiring, and everyone in Xianmen Tianzong was also proud of him. But at this moment, when they heard Lin Feng talking about the history, everyone's mood slightly calmed down. People like Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Wang Lin, and Shi Tianhao were not depressed. Instead, their minds seemed to have been purified, and they became calmer. They were also more determined to improve their strength as soon as possible, and looked forward to the magnificent Great Era. The end of every old era and the beginning of a new one undoubtedly contained the greatest danger and the greatest opportunity. The eyes of the senior and junior brothers were full of pride. Seeing their expressions, Lin Feng could not help but laugh, and continued to say leisurely, in the past, the most powerful Tao and mystique of the Elysium was called the Great Celestial Way, which was mysterious and profound. In addition to the Great Celestial Way, the Elysium actually had a secret sword Tao. This secret sword Tao was called the Great Nine Heavens Godly Sword, which could shake the heavens. At that time, it was even more powerful than the Great Celestial Way of the Taishu Temple's Heavenly Sword of Indifference and the Great Void Polar Mystic Sword technique. It was the sword Tao in the human cultivation world that was most likely to challenge the Heavenly Sword Qi of Shu Mountain. Lin Feng smiled. Moreover, whether the Heavenly Sword Qi or the Great Nine Heavens Godly Sword was stronger, and who was the first orthodox sword Tao of the human race, has always been a controversial matter. It was not until the Elysium was destroyed and lost in the long river of history that the Mount Shu sword sect could be considered to be the first sword sect in the Divine Land. Shi Tianhao nodded with understanding. That long-bearded old man was an expert who practiced the Great Nine Heavens Godly Sword in the Elysium. After he was killed by the king of the underworld or the successor of the king of the underworld, he was refined into an evil soul. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Yes, that's right." Everyone nodded. No wonder he's so strong. Lin Feng continued, "Speaking of this, I remember an interesting piece of news. In the past, when the Elysium already had the Great Wheel of Heaven, they had the intention to refine another Dharma treasure of the creation level." Yang Qing clicked her tongue slightly. Good heavens, they're still not satisfied with the Great Wheel of Heaven. They want to refine two Dharma treasures of the creation level. Zhu Yi said, "It's not strange. The Taishu Temple has the Haotian Mirror, and they also want to upgrade the Supreme Formation Breaking Drum and the Void Yin Yang Bell to the creation level. They can't do it in a short time, so they find another way to combine the two treasures into one and refine the Taishu Temple. This is equivalent to having a second Dharma treasure of the creation level. No one will complain about having more if they can improve their strength." Lin Feng said, "The second Dharma treasure that the Elysium wants to refine is rumored to be based on the way of the Great Nine Heavens Godly Sword, condensing the Supreme Sword Will and combining it with countless treasures to refine a Ninth Heaven Sword. However, this can only stay at the stage of imagination. Before the Ninth Heaven Sword is completed, the Elysium was destroyed." Xiao Yan and the others shook their heads and felt that it was a pity. Xiao Yan's expression changed and he crushed a sound transmission crystal. After a while, he looked shocked and turned to look at Lin Feng. "Master, there's news from outside. The Prime Minister of the Qin Kingdom, Wu Qingru, has resigned from Qin Emperor Shi Yu and returned to his hometown." Chapter 643. Wu Qingru was naturally not old. The so-called retiring and returning home was actually a way of saying that he was resigning. This legendary Prime Minister of the Great Qin Empire who had stood in the royal court as a mortal left in such a silent manner. Many people were caught off guard. What made people even more suspicious was that Qin Emperor Stonefeather did not try to keep Wu Qingru from resigning, letting go of his pillar of support just like that. He would naturally do things on the surface, such as leaving a memorial but not releasing it, but anyone could see that Qin Emperor Stonefeather did not mind Wu Qingru leaving, and was even somewhat happy to see it happen. This made people speculate that there was a conflict between the ruler and the minister of the Great Qin, and that there was an irreconcilable conflict. Qin Emperor Stonefeather naturally could not abdicate, so the one to leave was Wu Qingru. When Lin Feng received the news, he was not particularly surprised. Instead, a look of understanding appeared on his face. Wu Qingru leaving the Great Qin had verified his conjecture. His conjecture was confirmed, but Lin Feng was not very happy. He only shook his head slightly. Brother still has a long way to go. Lin Feng had some conjectures before, but now that he knew that Wu Qingru had resigned, he did not particularly care. But when Chu Yang, who was in Sand Continent City, heard the news, he was completely stunned. After a while, he came back to his senses, a bitter smile on his face. Well, it's all a mess. Ever since he felt that he had lived again, Chu Yang's most feared target, as well as his imaginary enemy, was Wu Qingru. This was because in that world that he could not tell if it was a memory or a dream. The reason why his sect, Heavens Beyond Mountain, had been destroyed was because of Wu Qingru's schemes, causing Heavens Beyond Mountain to become cannon fodder between the Shushan Sword sect and the Great Zhou dynasty. Now, Prince Liang Qian of the Great Zhou dynasty had not been assassinated at Kunlun Mountain, and there had not been any intense conflict between the Great Zhou dynasty and the Shushan Sword sect. But Chu Yang still did not dare to relax at all, because Wu Qingru's previous arrangements had already begun to take effect. Heavens Beyond Mountain had become a vassal of Shushan, causing his position to be very dangerous. Of course, Beyond Heaven Mountain was not the only power that depended on the Shushan Sword sect. However, Beyond Heaven Mountain's dependence on the Shushan Sword sect had been single-handedly designed by Wu Qingru. At the same time, it was very convenient for him to control this chess piece to achieve his own goals. Perhaps Wu Qingru had set up other chess pieces, but Chu Yang had no way of knowing or confirming such things. It was too difficult to find proof. For the time being, he had only set up Heavens Beyond Mountain as a chess piece. However, if Wu Qingru wanted the Shushan Sword sect to have a conflict with another power, Heavens Beyond Mountain might repeat the same mistake and become a thorn between the two powers. However, now that Wu Qingru had resigned as Great Qin's prime minister and had disappeared, Chu Yang felt quite confused and did not know where he should go. If Wu Qingru was truly dead, then Chu Yang could breathe a sigh of relief. But who knew where Wu Qingru had gone? What was he plotting? Was Beyond Heaven Mountain still part of his plan? These were all unknown, which gave Chu Yang a headache. In the original situation, Wu Qingru was in the light and he was in the dark. Wu Qingru did not know that there was an unremarkable junior, a foundation establishment cultivator, who was secretly interfering with his plans. That was why Chu Yang had enough leeway to warn the Great Zhou Prince, Liang Qian, in advance, and cause the assassination attempt at the Kunlun mountain range to fail. However, now that Wu Qingru had also gone from being in the light to being in the dark, Chu Yang suddenly felt like he was in the dark. Chu Yang left his courtyard and walked on the streets of Sand Continent City. The streets were bustling with people, but to Chu Yang, it was as if they did not exist. He walked silently by himself, all the way out of Sand Continent City and into the barren desert. Chu Yang stepped on the quicksand and squinted at the scorching sun above his head. Finally, he stopped and stood there motionlessly. After a long time, Chu Yang suddenly moved like a statue. He twisted his neck and looked into the distance. On the horizon, he could vaguely see the undulating mountain range. That was the direction of the Kunlun mountain range. Chu Yang let out a long sigh. Everything is different now. This world was completely different from his memories, or rather, the world in his dreams. Actually, it's pretty good. Chu Yang suddenly laughed. Nothing happened in Beyond Heaven Mountain. Qinggu has also turned misfortune into fortune, and there are almighty divine arts practitioners taking care of her. Out of the 3 things that I am most worried about, 2 of them have been resolved. Isn't this what I have always dreamed of? He looked in the direction of Kunlun Mountain and muttered to himself, all these changes actually stem from the master of Xian Gate, from his sudden rise and extremely powerful strength. Wu Qingru has disappeared. No one knows when he will appear next and what he will do. Chu Yang suddenly laughed at himself. Isn't it because I am not like the master of Xian Gate, who has almighty divine arts that can turn the world around with one hand? Otherwise, I would have slapped Wu Qingru to death and ended everything once and for all. To forge iron, one needs to be strong. Originally, it was because time was tight and I didn't have enough time. Now, even though I don't know how much time I have, how can I not make use of it and improve myself as much as possible? Chu Yang straightened his back. His entire person was like a long sword that was going to pierce through the heavens. He stood proudly in the wilderness and pointed at the sky above his head. The three things that I am most worried about, or rather, the three things that I am most regretful about in my memories and dreams, I will personally complete the last one. It is also to protect beyond Heaven Mountain and Qinggu. Chu Yang looked in the direction of Kunlun Mountain. The person he missed the most was there. Ever since he had woken up, he had been searching for her. He clearly knew where the girl was, but until today, he had never had the chance to see her with his own eyes. Guarding Kunlun Mountain Sand Continent City, besides building a good relationship with Xianmen Tianzong, Chu Yang had always hoped to have the chance to meet the person he missed. But now, he suddenly changed his mind. He did not want to be like a hunting dog chasing after a bone. He did not want to chase after his unrecognizable memories. Since everything was different, he might as well forge a new path. Even if the road ahead was full of thorns, even if he would break his head and bleed. Wu Qingru, I want to thank you. Your sudden disappearance made me anxious, but it also made me determined. The sharpness around Chu Yang suddenly disappeared. It was as if he had turned into an ordinary, lazy youth. He stretched his back and smiled. Even though I don't know if you will appear again or when you will next, when you do, I will be completely different. Thank you for giving me time. I will use this time not only to race against you, but also to race against this completely different world. Chu Yang's spirit and appearance were completely new. He was still the same person, and his cultivation was still the same. However, it was as if he had been reborn. He once again looked in the direction of Kunlun Mountain and said resolutely, Qinggu, wait for me. I will definitely find you. Chu Yang did not know that on his body, a talisman had flashed for a moment. In the sky above the Kunlun Mountain range, at the peak of Jade Capital Mountain, Lin Feng looked thoughtfully at the empty void. The corners of his mouth curved into a smile. It was just a spur-of-the-moment decision to leave a mark for you. Who would have thought that you were still thinking about my disciple? Beside him stood a young girl dressed in purple. There was a Tai Chi pattern on her lapel. Her appearance was picturesque. It was Luo Qinggu. Master, what's wrong? Luo Qinggu asked curiously. Lin Feng turned his head and said indifferently, Xiao Wu, you are still young and may not understand many things. However, it is precisely because of your young age that I have to warn you about some things in advance. Only then can I guarantee that you will not be deceived by others. Luo Qinggu nodded her little head. Please enlighten me, master. Lin Feng said, in this world, there are some adult men who favor young girls like you. They will always think of ways to deceive and harm you. When you meet such people, you must stay at a respectful distance. Don't listen to their flowery words. If he is persistent, teach him a lesson. If you really can't handle it, you can come and find me. Your senior brothers are not just for show. Luo Qinggu listened attentively. Then, she nodded her head vigorously and answered crisply, yes, master. Xiao Wu will remember. Don't listen to the flowery words of outsiders. Stay at a respectful distance from such people. If he is persistent, teach him a lesson. If Xiao Wu can't beat him and doesn't dare to disturb master, Xiao Wu will find my senior brothers to beat him up. In the desert, Chu Yang, who had just made up his mind and changed his appearance, suddenly shivered for no reason. He looked at his surroundings in bewilderment. He was surrounded by a scorching desert and the sun was shining brightly above his head. He couldn't help but feel a little confused. What the hell? Putting aside the fact that I'm successful in my cultivation, how could I be shivering in such hot weather? On Jade Capital Mountain, Lin Feng looked at Luo Qinggu and smiled. Relax, it's better to be safe than sorry. Since you are my disciple, I will naturally look after you. He led Luo Qinggu to the edge of a cliff at the top of the Jade Capital Mountain. At the foot of the mountain below, the black waves of the Yin and Yang Sea kept slapping against the precipitous cliff, setting off waves after waves. It looked rather dangerous. As Luo Qinggu looked at the Black Sea, she felt a sense of familiarity. Lin Feng said, Xiao Wu, keep the sword intent in your heart. Keep your understanding of the sword in mind. Luo Qinggu nodded. Over the past few days, other than carefully studying the Tao, she had been following Lin Feng's guidance. She had gradually abandoned the saber Tao she learned from the Luo clan and carefully studied the concept of the sword Tao. Lin Feng did not teach her any specific sword Tao divine powers or cultivation techniques. He only gave her a general direction, allowing Luo Qinggu to ponder over it herself and conclude the most suitable path for her. With Luo Qinggu's present cultivation level and her understanding of the heaven and earth great Tao, it was impossible for her to independently figure out the concept of the sword Tao, even if she had extraordinary perceptivity. However, under Lin Feng's guidance, she was not required to achieve anything immediately. Instead, she needed to have a prototype. Even if it was not mature, it could be slowly perfected. The crux was that it had to be compatible with her. Luo Qinggu closed her eyes and entered cogitation. Lin Feng's perception landed on her as he imprinted the sword intent that Luo Qinggu had figured out into his mind. Then, Lin Feng stretched out his palm and grabbed at the Yin-Yang Sea beneath the cliff. Immediately, a slender water line was pulled into the air from the Black Sea and landed in Lin Feng's palm. Chapter 644. The most yin and coldest, gloomy and pitch-black seawater turned into a long line of water, passing through thousands of meters of space, and was pulled up by Lin Feng from the Yin-Yang Sea at the foot of the mountain. Lin Feng clenched his hand, as if he was holding the hilt of a long sword, and then the yin-cold black water constantly condensed in his palm. Very quickly, a 3-foot-long, sparkling and translucent black longsword appeared in Lin Feng's hand. The quality of the longsword seemed to be forged from pure black ice, without any impurities, but the blade was pitch black, without any sword light. Not only did the blade not reflect light, but the black ice blade was like a black hole, faintly swallowing all light that came into contact with it, so that the space where the sword was actually seemed to be a black curtain like the original darkness of the universe. Only endless yin-cold energy came out of the sword, making one's heart palpitate. This sword is called Profound Che. As Lin Feng spoke, he handed the black ice sword in his hand to Luo Qinggu. The sword was not completely forged. When it was in Luo Qinggu's hand, the sword intent in her heart and the Profound Che sword became one. It was truly completed. A not strong but profound aura flowed out of the black ice sword. Luo Qinggu opened her eyes and carefully tried to figure out the principles and artistic conception within. She murmured, although it can't even be considered a magic tool of the Zhuji state, it seems to have unlimited potential. Its sword intent is mysterious and leads straight to the Great Way. Lin Feng said lightly, this sword will follow you for your entire life. As you grow, this sword will also grow together with you. Just like how you yourself have infinite potential, this sword also has the same principle. How high you can go in the future depends on you. Luo Qinggu held the Profound Che sword, bowed to Lin Feng. Xiao Wu will definitely diligently cultivate. Lin Feng said with a smile, logically, after you reach foundation establishment, you can refine it yourself, but if this sword can follow you to foundation establishment, it is a good thing for both you and it. This is your natal sword. I'm just helping you condense it. It's not a treasure I'm bestowing upon you. If any of your fellow brothers and sisters reach foundation establishment, I'll bestow upon them a golden elixir period magical artifact. When someone forms their gold core, they will be bestowed with a Yuanying realm magic tool. If they form their nascent soul, there will be a magic tool waiting for them. You are naturally no exception. This profound Che sword is not included. Luo Qinggu smiled and said, "Thank you, master." Lin Feng said, "So, you just need to practice hard." Xiao Wu, look at the yin-yang sea under your feet. How do you feel? It's scary, but it feels familiar. Luo Qinggu turned around and looked at the Black Sea below. Although she was far away, she could still feel the power of the profound Che sword. It was extremely yin, extremely cold, and completely dark. A smile appeared at the corner of Lin Feng's mouth, and it was as warm as the sun. You have a pure yin body, so you can naturally gather the yin qi between heaven and earth into your body and purify it into pure yin qi. Therefore, when you practice yin-attributed Taoist arts, you will be able to travel 1,000 miles in a day, far surpassing ordinary people. And the seawater of the yin-yang sea is also the rare pure yin water in the world. Every drop of seawater is actually formed by the condensation of a large amount of pure yin qi. If others practice in the seawater, they won't be able to withstand the dense yin qi. At least, it's not beneficial to their practice, and it will even lower their practice efficiency. But for Xiao Wu, it's the most suitable place for you to practice. Lin Feng said with a smile, although the spirit qi on Jade Capital Mountain is abundant, when it comes to your body, this pure yin sea is more suitable for you to practice. Luo Qinggu nodded. Xiao Wu understands. Then, Master, how long will Xiao Wu stay in the sea every day? Lin Feng turned to look at her, and slowly said, "It's not how long you stay in the sea every day, but always stay in there, until you reach the limit of what you can bear." Moss. Master. Thinking that she would always be soaking in the seawater, the little Loli's face immediately turned a little green. Lin Feng said indifferently, "Xiao Wu, Master, and you hit it off. Although we haven't known each other for a long time, I still have some understanding of your temperament. You have outstanding talent, but you have a lazy temperament. Although you have experienced many changes, and have the desire to improve, your temperament is still not stable enough. An overly comfortable life may gradually make you return to the state of your childhood. With Master here, no one will make you angry, and no one will dare to bully you. But you must always remember the reason why you practice Taoism, and you must constantly push yourself." Luo Qinggu became silent, and seriously pondered over Lin Feng's words. Lin Feng's words were not aimless, but he really spoke from his feelings. If not for the existence of Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong, Luo Qinggu would have followed her own predetermined fate. The heaven-accumulating dark soul pearl was broken, and she was abandoned by her family. She suffered a huge blow, and tasted the coldness of human nature. Perhaps she would have truly matured. After going through this threshold, the girl's temperament and willpower became tenacious. Although she did not have outstanding bone structure, it was not impossible for her to live a different life. But now, the appearance of Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong not only improved the little Loli's talent and bone structure, but also gave her a new support, a support that was much stronger than the Luo family. She was Lin Feng's youngest disciple. She was lively and innocent, and she was obedient and cute in front of people she knew. As long as she was not provoked, she was actually not a naughty child. This made Xiao Yan, Shi Tianhao, and the other senior and junior brothers pamper her. Although it was different from blood kinship, there was no doubt that Luo Qinggu had a new emotional attachment, and it also allowed her to return to the environment where she was pampered during her childhood. The previous incident with the Luo family was a huge blow to her, but with the gradual passage of time, the scars would eventually be healed. Especially since her talent was even more outstanding, and she had become Lin Feng's personal disciple, the Luo family would definitely try to repair the cracks. So to put it simply, although she had experienced a setback, it was very likely that the little Loli's temperament would become lazy again. After all, this setback was actually very short, and the little Loli's luck changed very quickly. Before she had the time to carefully experience the ups and downs of life, she had a smooth journey once again. Luo Qinggu took a deep breath and looked at Lin Feng with her big eyes. "Master is right. I have already wasted too much of my precious time in the past, and now my cultivation is far behind my senior brothers. I should seize every opportunity one have to cultivate hard. It's best that you understand this principle. Lin Feng revealed a smile of approval. Luo Qinggu said, I will definitely work hard to cultivate. Before she could finish her sentence, Luo Qinggu suddenly felt like she was flying through the clouds. When she looked down, it was no longer the solid ground of the Jade Capital Mountain, but air. The 10,000 feet deep abyss beneath her was the turbulent black surface of the Yin-Yang Sea. She heard Lin Feng's laughter. Since you understand the principle, then cut the crap. Hurry up and go down. Master. The little loli only had time to let out a cry of surprise before she fell freely towards the sea below. She already had a good qi cultivation. Although she could not walk on air, she was proficient in escape techniques. However, her magic power was restrained by Lin Feng, and she could only watch as she fell into the sea with a plop without any ladle-like image. Falling from a height of 10,000 feet, even if it was seawater below, if one's torso hit the surface of the sea, one's internal organs would also be shattered. Naturally, Lin Feng would not really be that heartless. The moment she fell into the sea, he protected Luo Qinggu. However, the little loli did not feel good either, and was instantly drenched. Luo Qinggu floated up from the water and looked up pitifully. Master, at least let little Wu be prepared. Little Wu has never swum before. Smiling, Lin Feng said, you won't drown to death. Stop talking nonsense and hurry up. Luo Qinggu was in the middle of the Black Sea. She immediately felt the endless pure yin qi surging into her body. Even with her pure yin body constitution, she felt that she was going to be frozen for a moment due to the cold yin power. The little loli did not dare to be negligent. She adjusted her body and directly sat cross-legged in the sea. She formed a sword art with both hands and placed them on her knees. She held the profound Che sword with both hands and circulated the magic power around Luo Qingwu's body. She immediately sat steadily in the waves. Although her small body rose and fell with the waves, it was still stable. Silently, she endured the cleansing of the Yin-Yang Sea's water and guided the spiritual energy into her body. Standing on Mount Yujing, Lin Feng looked down and smiled. He nodded, not bad, not bad. You've quickly found the trick and are on the right track. He left a magic power imprint on Luo Qingwu's body so that he could protect his disciple when necessary. At the same time, he could also monitor Luo Qingwu's cultivation state. At this moment, he could feel the boundless pure yin energy being absorbed into Luo Qingwu's body continuously. In almost this short period of time, the little loli was already about to break through the 8th level of Qi Disciple and rush to the 9th level of Qi Disciple. Not only the pure yin energy, even the cold energy and dark energy in the Black Sea water were also slowly being absorbed and refined by Luo Qingwu. After all, Luo Qingwu's current cultivation level was still low. As time passed, the speed at which she refined the spiritual energy would not be able to keep up with the speed at which the spiritual energy invaded her body. As time passed, she would reach her limit. At that time, she would need Lin Feng to watch over her and fish her out. However, after careful observation, Lin Feng found that the little fellow's cultivation results were even better than what he had expected. Lin Feng nodded and was a little emotional. Sigh, I have to say, with a high foundation, cultivation is really easy in the early stages. Luo Qingwu's cultivation was on the right track. Lin Feng only needed to pay attention to her from time to time. He left the cliff and strolled on the mountain peak. He came to the disciple's abode that was already empty. Lin Feng looked at the disciple's abode and then flicked his finger lightly. The yin and yang life and death formation appeared in the sky. However, it did not fully activate. It only displayed the eternal instant change. The light of the formation landed on the disciple's abode. Lin Feng flicked his finger repeatedly. Waves of magic power were injected into the yin and yang life and death formation and the disciple's abode. From the formation, a small amount of eternal God light and instant divine sand flowed out. Then, they set up a formation that contained the eternal instant change in the disciples' abode. Very soon, the small formation completely fused with the disciples' abode. The flow of time in the disciples' abode changed instantly. Different rooms had different flow of time. Some accelerated by 1 time, some accelerated by 3 times, some accelerated by 5 times, some accelerated by 10 times, and so on. Chapter 645. Lin Feng remodeled the disciples' abode again. On the basis of gathering spiritual energy, he added the mystery of time change. This place can no longer be called a disciples' abode. Lin Feng smiled. From now on, it will be called Universal Light Hall. Other than the little lowly who was still cultivating in the Yin-Yang Sea, all of Lin Feng's direct disciples, including Li Yuanfang, received his voice transmission and came to the front of the Hall of Universe together. They carefully observed and immediately discovered the changes within, and could not help but click their tongues in wonder. Lin Feng said, "From now on, the rules will be set. The foundation disciples in the Cloud Peaks will undergo a big assessment regularly. Those who pass will become a true disciple. In addition to the big assessment, there will be a small assessment from time to time. Those who pass the assessment will be allowed to enter the Universal Light Hall to cultivate for a period of time as a reward." Xiao Yan and the others nodded. "That's good. It will encourage the disciples to work hard." Zhui thought for a moment and asked, "Master, in this way, won't the gap between the strong and the strong increase?" Lin Feng shook his head. "Just like the big assessment, the focus is on the potential of the disciples, temperament, and comprehensive level, not the current level of cultivation." Zhu Yi looked carefully at each room of the Universal Light Hall and nodded. The acceleration time in each room is different. The choice of which room to enter can also test the disciples' grasp and confidence in themselves. Lin Feng said, "That's right. In addition, the foundation disciples need to go through an assessment before they can enter the room to cultivate, while the true disciples under you can enter at any time. This is also a right enjoyed by the true disciples." Zhu Yi and the others nodded. Lin Feng put his hands behind his back and walked to the side. Xiao Yan and the others followed him. The group stopped not far from the Universal Light Hall. Up. Lin Feng secretly held 3 construction medallions in his hand. After activating them, 3 streaks of light flew out. One of them landed far below the mysterious Heaven Treasure Tree, and on the other side was a small building. As for the other 2 lights, one of them landed next to the Heaven Returning Gold Pavilion and the Sutras Pavilion, revealing a majestic hall. On the horizontal board of the hall, there were 3 words, Hall of Divine Craftsmanship, which was transformed from the construction token of the Refining Pavilion. Another ray of light landed beside the Time Light Hall and turned into a huge hall. Although it wasn't as big as the All Heavens main hall, it was much bigger than the other buildings. Xiao Yan and the others curiously sized up this hall, walking in a single file, feeling the mysteries of the hall. After a while, they all revealed a smile of sudden understanding on their faces. "Master has good methods. Even the few of us can use this hall right now." Lin Feng smiled and said, "It won't be needed soon, but it's just right for this junior disciple." He looked at Xiao Yan and the others and said, "Go back and teach your disciples well. Don't slack off." Everyone nodded and turned to leave. Xiao Yan was left behind by Lin Feng. "Let's go, Xiao Yan. Follow me back to the Heaven Gold Pavilion." When the master and disciple arrived at the pill refining room, Lin Feng turned around and smiled. "How's the nourishment of the magic treasure I gave you?" Xiao Yan smiled. "We're getting along well." As he spoke, he formed a seal with both hands. A 5-colored stream of light rose from the top of his head. Within the stream of light, an ancient black medallion floated in the air. It was the primordial spirit magic treasure, the 5 divine medallions. 5 words were engraved on the medallion according to the positions of the 5 elements. Silently, light flowed on each word. If one looked closely at the light, they would see dense patterns flowing and fluctuating, containing great power. The 5 words were Tai, Chong, Xia, Gu, and Shi. They were the honorific titles of the 5 powerful human sovereigns from the immemorial age and the ancient age. They each carried the power and will of the 5 sovereigns and then merged. Although each power and will seemed a little superficial compared to the true orthodoxy of the human sovereigns, one could vaguely see the network within it if one studied it carefully. Although this treasure was only a spirit-nurturing grade magic treasure, its power was extremely powerful, far beyond ordinary. It could intimidate the heavens, and it could attack and defend at the same time. Not to mention its offensive power, its defensive power was definitely one of the top among spirit-nurturing grade magic treasures. Xiao Yan had the 5 great true fires, so the destructive power of the celestial flaming lotus was extremely terrifying. However, he was brave and would rather break than bend. Sometimes, he would put himself in danger, so Lin Feng specially gave him this treasure to protect himself. At the same time, Xiao Yan used the 5 great true fires to nourish the 5 divine medallions, which was also beneficial to this magic treasure. The nether evil flame nourished the Tai pattern, the mysterious heaven tribulation flame nourished the Chong pattern, the solar true fire nourished the Gu pattern, the Nan Mingli fire nourished the Xia pattern, and the pure Yang true fire nourished the Shi pattern. Xiao Yan laughed bitterly. I don't even dare to refine this treasure in front of Zhen Er. Her ancient bloodline has the Nan Mingli fire, but I used it to refine Xia Huang's power and will. What is this? Lin Feng said with a smile, of the 7 great true fires, the Nanmingli fire is a fire that combines yin and yang. In terms of blazing heat, it is inferior to the true fire of the sun and the true fire of pure yang. Because the ancient emperor possesses the Nanmingli fire, that's why the person who refined these 5 divine badges worshipped him in the south. Moreover, although the ancient word pattern on these 5 god badges is indeed the inheritance of the ancient emperor's power, it is the same path as the ancient emperor's saber. It has nothing to do with the Nanmingli fire at all. The ancient emperor's orthodoxy is so profound that cultivating the Nanmingli fire divine art is only a part of it. Xiao Yan chuckled. You still have to be careful. I heard that in ancient times, although the ancient emperor and Xia Huang were separated by the king of the underworld, they knew each other. When Xia Huang was on the throne, the ancient emperor's cultivation was still low, and he had some disagreements with Xia Huang's people. One is water and one is fire. It's hard to avoid people making assumptions. Lin Feng laughed and shook his head. Don't learn from those boring people. Lin Feng flicked his finger, and a stream of light landed in front of Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan caught the thing and saw a translucent pill the size of an infant's fist, completely snow-white in color, appearing to be translucent appear in front of him. The core of the elixir was faintly black, and the black core flickered in and out of existence. It was as if a hole was constantly being repaired. Great elixir. Xiao Yan's nose twitched slightly, and he inhaled the elixir's fragrance into his body. He was instantly moved when he felt the medicinal effects. The elixir that Lin Feng gave him was the Heaven Spirit Replenishing Elixir. After listening to Lin Feng's introduction of the effects, Xiao Yan rubbed the elixir with his fingers and muttered, Master, although the effects of this elixir are heaven-defying, I'm afraid there's still a limit to its effects. Lin Feng said, That's right. However, some disciples actually have great potential, but like your 3rd junior brother, they are limited by their innate bones. This elixir is suitable for them. I have some finished products here. Take them and study them. For the time being, you should focus on refining the Heaven Spirit Replenishing Elixir and strive to refine more. Xiao Yan took a few Heaven Spirit Replenishing Elixirs from Lin Feng and immediately opened the outer core furnace to try refining them. Ever since Yu Hongyan found the ascending spirit grass in the ancient desolate sea world, Lin Feng had cultivated it in the Medicine Valley. It had already reached a certain scale and could withstand the consumption of large-scale refining of elixirs. After Xiao Yan worked hard day and night, although the success rate of refining elixirs was lower than other elixirs, there was still a considerable number of Heaven Spirit Replenishing Elixirs out of the furnace. Lin Feng had also carried out some experiments during this period. Overall, the results were satisfactory. The Heaven Spirit replenishing elixir had a limit on improving one's bone foundation. When a cultivator took this elixir, it was effective once. After taking it, the bone foundation would be improved by 1 point, and the maximum improvement was 7 points. That was, people with 6 points of bone foundation could be improved to 7 points, and people with 7 points of bone foundation would be slightly strengthened, but they would not be able to improve to 8 points. People with 8 points of bone foundation would not be able to take it. 7 points of bone foundation might seem inconspicuous. Compared to people like Shi Tianhao, Yang Qing, and Luo Qingguo, it was almost trash. But in fact, it was already very good in the eyes of the general public. Other people did not have the system like Lin Feng, which could see the potential values of comprehension, will, and blessing. The talent of others could be quantified and tested, mainly on the bone foundation. Comprehension and will could only be seen roughly. The overall evaluation standard of the human cultivation world excluded the elite Taishu temple. In terms of bone foundation talent, 6 points was considered excellent and had great potential for training. 7 points was considered a talent worthy of attention, and it would cause competition among the middle-level sections. 8 points was considered a genius, and the number was already extremely rare. No matter which sect, they would be highly valued and focused on training. 9 points could be considered a monster, and it could be said to be rare in the world. Even if the Taishu temple was included, the number was extremely limited. As for 10 points, it could only be laughed at. Using the recent 1,000 years as the dividing line, among the cultivators born within 1,000 years, only Shi Tianhao could be sure of the value of 10 points of bone foundation by Lin Feng. Lin Daohan and Shi Tianyi both had masters who could not see the real values, so they were considered suspicious. Wang Lin's bone foundation potential value was 5 points, which was judged by Lin Feng to be unqualified. But that was compared to the standards that the system let him choose personal disciples. In the eyes of the general public, it could only be said to be relatively ordinary and not outstanding enough. This young man was a bit unlucky. Not only was his overall development a late-stage power player, but even his bone foundation talent was also late-stage power. Wang Lin's initial spirit toughness and strength were actually not bad, but this was a limited advantage that could only be manifested after training deeply. When he went to the Han Yu sect for the test without Qi cultivating stage, he could not show this small advantage, so he naturally became a tragedy and was treated as a pure waste. After all, Wang Lin's physical qi and blood were ordinary, and the body's meridian capacity, the strength of meridian, the sensitivity of the spirit to sense and communicate with spirit qi, and the spirit qi affinity to guide spirit qi into the body, these basic abilities were all a mess at the beginning. Improving the overall bone foundation by 1 point didn't seem to be much, but this point was actually a qualitative change in many cases. Especially when a cultivator was building their spirit platform in the foundation establishment stage, it was more likely to play a decisive role. Moreover, improving the bone foundation would also greatly save a cultivator's time in the early stages of cultivation, reduce the difficulty, and increase the efficiency. This was especially important for Lin Feng. Not only did he improve 1 or 2 points, but he could also improve it on a large scale. The threshold for him, Xianmen Tianzong, to accept disciples was not low to begin with. Even if the disciple's bone foundation was not too outstanding, the other 3 aspects of potential would definitely be good. Others mainly focused on the bone foundation, but there were many dark horses in Lin Feng's side. Now that he improved the overall bone foundation, the overall potential of the sect's disciples would immediately go up a level. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.